I think your family just loves you more, Jay. I think that's what it is. And you feel more nurtured. This is the Imperial Schools of Honor podcast. I'm Josh Folan.
And I'm Jay Baxtron.
And we are going to be bullshit about the formative years of console gaming as we revisit the periodicals that covered it again. For this episode, we put ourselves through the meat grinder that is Sunsoft's Fester's Quest on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Please send help. I used the feature in Nintendo Power Issue 8, September-October 89 for aid while playing. Link to that will be in the show notes. And emulation disclosures up first. Emulation all day on this fucker. That's Stopia on my PC with NES Advantage piped in via USB adapter. Jay, how'd you play?
I played with the standard USB controller, NES controller at first, then switched to the NES Advantage controller connected with a special little USB thing.
What sparked that? Like, because I thought you said it was just fried. Like when I first.
Dude, like when you first got it, like I tried it multiple times, like I just couldn't get it to work, and I'm like, I don't understand, like it just must not work. Like I've tried all these things, so I just sat it to the side and like whatever. And getting into Fester's Quest, obviously in the manual, it says up front, like if you have a rapid fire controller or turbo controller, that's helpful.
Your life will suck a lot. Helpful is not even a. I can't even How were you? How was the play? We'll talk about it later. Yeah, fuck.
But long story short, I went searching for that bat. Like not searching, it was right there. I got a Q-tip. I started cleaning. I'm like, I'm doing everything I absolutely can. I had tools. I got a special toolkit. I was gonna take the thing apart. Like I was like,
dude, when I got mine from my uncle, that's the first time. All those controllers, I took them all apart. I posted pictures and shit when I did. Yeah, I took them all apart. I actually put my NES Advantage back together wrong. The switch doesn't work. Like I put the dials on wrong, so the turbo thing is not right. Like I mean, it still works. You can still change it. It's just not the little dot that says where you're at on the turbo meter isn't fucking aligned right on both of them. I at least did them the same way. That would be the worst if they were different. I would probably have to kill myself. But the 1-2 switch doesn't, like the second port doesn't work. Like when I switch it to 2, it doesn't work, which is awful. Like I remember when I was playing Dig Dug 2 with Amy, and we were trying to pass that controller, which is such a cool thing about that. When you're doing a controller passing game, just passing that big ass controller and both being able to use it, you just hit the switch because they both plug in.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a cool ass feature, but fucking I fucked something up with that switch, and now the 2 doesn't work either. So, like I said, I'd probably just buy a new one. the NES Advantage on the front it's a little scratched off anyways, so that bothers me, of course. So I might as well just buy a new one.
Just throw the whole thing away.
Yeah, even though it works relatively fine. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I was happy to see that you did that because it is just the quality of life with and without the controller on the NES they're not even the same.
It changed.
It's Jeff Bezos versus the guy living in a tent at the beach. It's the two.
It's so funny because it was still just in the back of my mind. I was playing through it no problem, up until like boss 5 or something, and then like we'll get to it later, but something happened, and I was like, oh, now I got to go back. And I'm jamming hard to kill the green and pink freaking frog aliens. And I keep getting hit, and I'm like, fuck. And so at that point, you started streaming your gameplay, right? And I saw how fast, how rapidly those bullets were coming out. And I was like, nope, we're going to see if we can make this bad boy work. And I got it to work after I cleaned everything. Q-tips, turned upside down. Kept filling, changing every setting I could find, and then restarted everything. Finally got it to work. Game changer.
Super hot. I applaud your fortitude. Yeah, huge
so
difference.
Necessary.
So if you are impressed by Jay's can-do DIY attitude towards retro gaming or like anything else about our pod, please rate and review it. Be part of the ISOH movement. It gives us validation and self-worth, and that really helps us in life in general. So what are we jamming on now, Jay? What are you jamming on now, other than fucking Fester's Quest?
Josh, I have been playing Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance. Have you tried it?
This is an Xbox thing?
Oh, you don't even know. Yes. So it just came out day and date. So which means for our listeners, that means it was released the first day it was released. It also was released to Game Pass. And I actually got to play it a few days early with a demo, obviously, because I work for Microsoft through an insider. And it's out now. Everything's good. People can play it. I haven't seen the reviews being as glowing as I feel about it, but to me, it's a freaking blast. It's like a combination.
FPS?
No, it's kind of like it's a combination of like Rise of the Tomb Raider. If you've seen like the Xbox versions, the Rise of the Tomb Raider series, and like Assassin's Creed Odyssey in terms of your gameplay. So you're still like your first person, like you would be in like The Witcher 3. Like you're still that perspective.
So over the show, like third.
Yeah. But it's a blast to me. Like, I've never played a live Dungeons and Dragons type
Are
of
you
game.
in a party or are you?
No, so you can. There's definitely a heavy multiplayer aspect, but there's like 4 or 5 characters you can choose from who are set up. They have different weapons that they use, different races that they are, different parts that they play. But you get to choose to be one of them, and you just play through the story, and you do different missions. I'm not that far into it, obviously, but you can definitely group up with other people, multiplayer, and do them together. So I haven't got to do that yet because I still feel like I'm way too new at it at the beginning. But yeah, it seems like it'll be a fun game to play.
Fucking Dungeons and Dragons story world is really good.
I'm telling, if you like it, and that's the thing about it. Again, I've never played one of the live D games, so I'm like the story's just lost on me. It's just like, oh, this story's happening. Okay.
I have played I shouldn't say a million D&D games. I've played, there's probably been a half dozen in my life that I have gotten into and really played, most of them on PC and stuff. And this it's just so big. The story world is so big that, I mean, you're talking, no joke, dude. I mean, that shit was created late 70s. There's 40 years of just like, there's 40 years of lore coming out of an entity that is like prolific in their lore creation. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's the most possible lore that could be created in a 40-year span. And they've just been rocking and rolling on it for that long. And there's just, they basically have nothing to do with each other is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, whatever the story is in that game is, I can't even, like, it's going to be nothing that I've ever heard of or seen or could grasp, or like, it's going to be like playing a completely new IP. Every game is like a new IP, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting at there. So yeah, just the style of it is very cool, and I'm sure that story-wise, at least, I'll probably be into it.
Yeah, so, I was seeing some reviews online, man. People were saying that it seems like another similar game. I can't remember the name, like some Warhammer game or something, and I've never played that, never heard of that. But to me,
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I've seen that, though. I've looked at those. There's like I think there's like 2 or 3 of them. I think I was looking at those in one of my last, like, hunting for an RPG kind of fucking little quests, and I think I remember that name sounds kind of familiar, and it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, if it's what I'm thinking of, it seems very D&D, which is why I was looking at it in the first place, So if it doesn't just like differentiate itself, maybe. But I mean, I haven't played that, so who cares?
So play this game, download it. I'm new enough that we could like jump in and party together. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
my little
pass.
Yeah, my little rant here will definitely highlight the fact that I do not have a game to play right now. So yeah, I'm down to check that out for sure.
Nice. And then other than that, man, really only just playing some Rocket League when I've had time. Still having fun with it, but only really playing when I play with the family, because I mean, when we play, we're already one team, so it's very easy to jump into a match. Much tougher when it's just me by myself. So yeah, that's pretty much that. And Halo 5, got back into that just for the PvP aspects, just for something to jump into quick, 15 minutes type of thing. Because that's all I've had time for these days.
Feel that? Yeah, I don't really have a fuck around game right now either. Word. Okay. Well, I, as you might imagine, played some Subnautica.
A big surprise.
I beat it. It was incredible.
Oh, you beat it?
Yeah, I beat it. Yeah,
Wow.
the ending was fantastic, and I feel empty and sad inside that the story is over, and that essentially however long it takes them to churn out a new one, particularly for platform, maybe the next round won't be sit on the PC for so long before it comes to console, but it'll still be a long time, I'm sure. Despite the absolute certainty I have that a new iteration will be coming.
Oh,
Like, they did
nice.
not, they fucked like they, it was the perfect combination of, when you have a sequel to a game, you want to see those little quality of life improvements that like show they're paying attention to like the things that people bitched about that sucked, that didn't work, whatever it might be in the first iteration of the game. So like that's a, just a, I mean, it's a small, it's a known small team. That Outer Worlds, I think, is the name of the company. Like they're a known small team. They like it. I watched an interview. I think I talked about a long time back, talking to the guy who started the company and created the game. Like you can just tell that the dude, like, it's his baby, and it's not, and granted that shit, after enough money flows in, someone will acquire them, and that'll get fucked up eventually too. But like right now, you can tell that he cares so much about it staying true to the whole core idea of like non-combative exploration in an alien world. This like, almost like, what's that called? Like the conservation. It's almost like a conservation idea, and like the way it like stays true to like, you're this, it's a little bit of an allegory for the fucking world fucking up the oceans right now on planet Earth. It's like there's just care and love in a lot of TLC in it, and so that is clearly apparent in just like the mechanics of the game. But then also with a sequel, you're always, I am anyways, worried that the story is going to be not nearly as developed, as well thought out, as whatever, just because they're trying to create a sequel, as opposed to all the incubation time that an initial idea has before it gets out into the world. You know what I mean? A sequel. This is so true with like movie television properties. Is fucking the sequels always suck because there's just a 20% or some minute fraction of the time spent creating it that there is in the first one. So that wasn't at all a problem. I thought the story was better actually in the second one than the first one. So
Wow.
yeah, just everything about it fucking fantastic. I did end up having to tactfully Google the very last part of the game, which I'm very ashamed that I had to do. Like I had been stuck for weeks, dude. Like I story wise, I mean, there's
Mhm.
that's just another reason the game is so great. Like, you can be stuck story wise forever, and you're still, every time you go out, if you're really just going out and like, I'm just gonna go literally explore in a way that I cannot explain. There's no gaming experience I can think of, maybe ever, but without question in recent memory, where you're you're incentivized and both incentivized and rewarded to go out and really just incrementally explore every square inch that you can fucking get to, and the way the game set up, the way it's so vertically and horizontally open worldy, like that means there's just no, I beat the game. I was playing last night with the dumb shit that I'm doing now, the roundup shit that I'll get to later, and like I found a PDA, which is like the way you find kind of story. It's the way, it's one of the ways anyways that you find story elements. I found a fucking PDA right outside my base that I had never found. Like, I mean, no joke, dude, like 50 meters from the main exit of my base. And like, I've been playing this game. It's like 4 days or something that I've played this game now since I downloaded it, like the counter on the time played. And like, I've never found this thing just inches from my base. So just, and there's just so much to consume. So every time you do that, you find things and just stumble onto things. So even if you're not making progress in the actual story, you're still making incremental progress and then finding new things and discovering things and learning things about the environment or the fucking the fauna and flora, that's whatever, it's the physics of the world. Like it's just a constant discovery, and that is such a fucking fun thing, at least for me, the way what I want out of a video game. And so yeah, so it wasn't a waste of time, but I had been stuck in the actual story forever. So I was like, I just got to a point where I was like, I was just turning the game on, just like wandering around my base aimlessly. Like just fucking like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to fucking do. I'm just
Wow.
like trying to think. It's like trying to get a cue from something. Like, what do I do? Like, what's the next thing? I have no idea what to do. So I had to so I was like, yeah, super like fucking I don't know, like tactful is the only word to say. Like the keywords I'm using and what I allow myself to click on after the fact are like super conservative and like making sure I don't ruin, especially this part of the game, let alone any part of the game, but like super careful about what I'm Googling. And I was so conservative that I interpreted the information that I found poorly because I like skimmed it and didn't really internalize it. So like I actually saw it led to me doing another failed experiment essentially instead of finding the solution to the thing that I was trying to find a solution for. So like I had to go back and like re-Google and reread the thing again. And what I ended up learning from the World Wide Web was that like it's kind of what I was suspecting anyhow, that there was the existence of a place beyond a place that I didn't think led anywhere, despite the fact I had just, extensively and gotten lost in it numerous times over, explored the fuck out of it. You know what I mean? So it was just, because it was exactly what I knew, that I just didn't push further and harder or far enough and hard enough. So I went in there, I gave myself better bearings with beacons, these little things that just fucking, they put a little marker, as you might imagine. And like that gave me, which again, just like, it's just such common sense. Like, oh, I don't know where to go or even which direction to go. Put a marker and go the other way. Like it's like super simple solution to the problem, and I just didn't. Whatever. And so yeah, I pushed further deeper, and it was like absolutely like again, because it's not a game predicated on battle. So like, how do you make that final run harder exactly? Like, what is the way to do that? And like yes, you have things that are imposing enemies of sorts or creatures. You're not supposed to think of them as enemies, I don't think. But like the things and the way the environment kind of railroaded you through their presence was very well done. And it was there are fucker leviathans prowling the end of this game. They're just like fuck, and like that's the thing too. Like you, because they're not. They can be threatening, or they are threatening, of course. But like again, you're not supposed to like. They're just. It's like the great white shark phenomena. It's like, like, yes, they will fucking eat you if you're out there fucking with them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they are geared to do a certain thing in this environment. That's like their function in the fucking ecosystem. And if you get in the way or you feed into their purpose, you will die. Like, that's like, it doesn't mean they're like ill-willed or trying to hurt you necessarily. It's just, they're just doing what they do, These things like, what the way they get you is like really frustrating because like it fucks with your submersible, and like they did a really good job. The first one had a really cool, the Reapers, which is like I hate it. It's not spoilery, but like the first one had like the worst enemy in the first one, or one of the worst enemies in the first one, had a very cool like gotcha animation, and every time, like, I played that game even more than this one, maybe. And like every time one of those fucking Reapers got you, it was just like, ah, like same thing with this. Like they nailed this just as well. Like every time they get you, it's like, ah, like fuck, because like it is very punitive, and you don't know it because that's just the mechanic of the game is so good in that way that like when you're trying to run from things, and when you're running from things, you're in a submersible and you're running away from it, so you can't see it. It's just the most basic mechanic for like jump scare or thriller kind of video games, and like the way you have to engage it forces you to be surprised, and it's just, again, the game is so fucking good. It's incredible. Nice. So I finished it, and now I'm of course going back in and like I'm getting all the creature eggs I didn't get, and fleshing out parts of the game I wasn't able to fully sort, pushing the limits of the base building system, yada yada yada. So like there's still things to do and play, even though the really cool story is kind of ran its course. But go play Subnautica if you haven't played Subnautica, Jay. I don't know if I've mentioned that to you or not. I started fucking twice. Yeah, I started fucking with No Man's Sky a little bit also, and I think I might have mentioned that in the group chat. It's a little intriguing, and like I don't know, like it's almost like too complex. Like I turned it on last night trying to like, okay, I'm gonna fucking try it again, and like I don't know. I get into the like I just don't like I know what my objective is, but like I get into the menu system and stuff, and I'm looking at it, I'm just like this is like I can't even begin to digest what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? It's just like too opaque, too something.
Yeah, I jumped into that and felt the same thing, man. Because again, one of my buddies from the old ESO guild got heavy into it, and I messed around with it too, and I was just like, man, there's so much I just don't know.
I just
I don't know if I have the time to just like immerse myself into this.
Right. And that's kind of like, it sucks that, because like when I first played it, I was going through the tutorial stuff, and like, you know, that of course holds your hand and gets you understanding things, and like just like the little bit of time since I did that, it's just like gone, man. Like I'm just like I have no idea, you know, what I have no idea how to do with the thing that's telling me I should be doing, you know. Yeah, so that's frustrating. I was like, before I did that, I was like, I should finish Outer Worlds first. That was a cool game. And so I tried it, and I didn't even understand what was happening at first. I turned it on, and it was just like this error message comes up, and it's like, your Xbox thing needs to be fucking something. I'm like, fuck you. I have the fucking a year of the most expensive X. Fuck you. Like, that's not, you're wrong. You know, I just keep fucking hitting on trying it again. And I'm like, and I realized one of the times I went back to the menu that the Game Pass logo wasn't there anymore. So they took Outer Worlds off Game Pass. And this is what I fucking told you. I didn't want it to happen to me. And yeah, you and your bullshit illicit gaming outfit would fuck me like this, Jay. I fucking knew it. So I'm just going to quit video games entirely. Between this and the X-Men on the NES fiasco, I can't trust anyone ever enough to love again. And I have to just do nothing.
Well, you should have finished it, Josh. Yeah, I feel like that's only happened to me like once, but it was with a game that I don't even remember. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I was going to play that game. Whatever. Yeah.
Definitely, man. Outer Worlds is fucking cool, man. I definitely wanted to fucking finish that game. Subnautica got in the way.
That was the Fester's Quest title theme, bringing us into this episode appropriately, of course.
Yes, easily the best part about this game.
Like, I love that part, man. It brought me back. Hearing that just instantly took me back.
It's that game, that part of this game, and then every other part.
Oh, nah, it's not that bad.
Well, we'll start with the overview here before we start talking about the actual gameplay, Jay. One thing at a time. The synopsis, courtesy of the Sunsoft instruction manual, reads, "The Addams family are not very strange. In fact, they are quite smart. You see, it was Mama who always warned of the alien UFO coming to invade their city. All the other Addams thought she was crazy, but Mama, using her crystal ball, put a protective spell on the Addams family house. As Uncle Fester was moonbathing one night, the fabled UFO appeared and beamed all the people in the town up. When the aliens scanned the Addams house for life forms, they found none, thanks to Mama's spell. It is Gomez who must protect the Addams house, so Fester took his trusty gun and set out on his quest to rescue all the townspeople from the alien UFO." So, that's the setup here. What type of game is this, Jay?
This is
Obama that shit. Get it right.
This is our run and gun, overhead shoot 'em up, typical of the era. Yeah, I mean, you're running around, you have your gun with the overhead view where you can see all of Fester pretty much.
Not always overhead view. They got they tried to get a little fucking first person shooter in there, which was, well, not shooter, just first person. You don't shoot anything in there, but that was definitely envelope pushing for the time, as basic bitch as it is in this form. But just the idea of it is pretty, the fact they even tried to do it on an NES game is quite impressive. So there's an arcade iteration that looks relatively identical that also hit in '89, and I'm not sure what the exact date on that was, but the NES release was October '89. And that's just in time for Halloween, of course. And can you imagine the marketing expense that went into that wildly original choice for this kind of game? Like get to see the idiots at Sunsoft like, well, we got to release it. It's not, I mean, Halloween. There's no alternative. Like it's
I love it.
Spooky is in the synopsis. I mean, it's got to be fucking Halloween. So other happenings in that particular October, my man Ricky Henderson, one of my favorite players as a kid, stole 8 bases in a 5-game playoff series on October 7th, which is an MLB record. And on October 9th, Penthouse Mag's first Hebrew edition hit newsstands. How about that? How about that little fucking piece of history? October 17th, it had that big 6.9 World Series earthquake we've talked about before, whatever episode that was. That was pretty wild thing. If you haven't looked that up on the internet and watched the video of the broadcast from that, I highly recommend doing so. It's fucking crazy. And a little smidge of Ohio geography lesson. Smith Dairy in Orrville, Ohio makes the world's largest milkshake on the 30th, Jay. And that was 1,575.2 gallons. So
what?
God, this like makes me want to vomit thinking about.
What do you do with all that?
Yeah,
invite all of Ohio to drink it? Like what?
Yeah, how many human beings? How many gallons is an average? It's 12 ounces. How many ounces are in a gallon? I don't know. 60.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's a lot though.
Yes, it's a lot of fucking ounces. So like a normal milkshake is probably 12 ounces, and if our hypothetical shot in the dark there times 5, so you divide or multiply this by 5, that's how many human beings you need. 7,500 human beings drinking out of a fucking milkshake. Yeah,
I'm gonna pass. But cool.
Yeah, super cool. So that is my history contribution to this podcast episode. Jay, what's yours?
Nothing. I am absolutely surprised. Researching this, I really expected, because of the Addams Family reboots that happened when we were kids, I expected this to come out like right after that, to be like, hey, we got the movie, boom, now we got the game. Not at all. Like the movie didn't come out till 91.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this was like
probably
they knew the movie was in production, so they knew it was coming.
It was probably, you have to assume that like a reboot, even back then when reboots weren't a big thing. I mean, 2 years, it's still sitting in the studio fucking system for at least 2 years for sure.
Yeah.
So
the game comes out quicker. That's my hypothesis. They're like, all right, we're going to do a game too. And the game is like, all right, 6 months later, here we go.
You're right.
2 years from now. Yeah.
Right. There's plenty of, clearly we'll talk TV show and stuff later, but for the game, I'm surprised there's not anything that's worth talking about. So we have the artwork, the cover art, it's like A++ box art on the front of the thing. I think it's like a tight close up on Fester with a bizarre sneer on his face, and it's lit by lightning and a spider crawling down his fard. And the Addams mansion is in the background. Lightning's cracking down overhead of it, and they got the title treatment up top, and that's pretty cool too. The font for it and everything. And like, it's funny, like I didn't know what you just said going into this, that it hadn't been rebooted yet. So like, I was looking at that and like, I don't know if if you scrutinize it heavily, you're not going to make this, or heavily, you're not going to equate that Fester on the box art to the Christopher Lloyd version of him. But in my head, pre-scrutinization, that's kind of what it was, like that's the Christopher Lloyd Fester, and I don't know, there's something like, is it, he's bald, they do the same makeup under his eyes, he's goofy, like, like how varied could you even make an illustration of that character? Maybe that's part of what's behind this, but like, I don't know. I was surprised at how in line it was with my thinking of the modern movie, as well as the old TV show. Like, it's just funny how through line and all of that character is in all of them, I think, which is partly a testament to Christopher Lloyd's transformation in the movie, probably. But, it's just, really interesting how just nailed that is for my understanding of Fester. Really well done, though. Very, very well done art. Very beautiful. And then the back has a smorgasbord of screenshots, a whopping 7, which is way more than the usual 3 that you get. and they are large and in charge. All the great pixel art is shown in them babies. They have a couple from the dope title cut scene. They have shots of Thing and Lurch. There's 2 bosses, which are, one of the selling points of this for sure, and just 1 shot of normal gameplay, which is easily the weakest part of this video game, which is so many times we look at the back of these boxes and I'm like, why did they choose this fucking choice? Like this shows nothing. I can discern nothing. It's certainly not impressive, so good on Sunsoft's marketing team, which, my thoughts about Sunsoft's marketing team at this time are pretty high. Like all their ads are cool. They do licensed stuff, but it's all like hot licensed stuff, Platoon, Fester's Quest, Batman. Like there's no fucking bullshit Adventures of Tom Sawyer in there. Like they're not fucking around with bullshit IP. So they do a good job of marketing, I think. So it's not surprising that their box is cool too. And this is a game I bought. I had this game as a kid, so I've said
you
before,
bought it. Okay.
Yeah, I had this game. Yeah, I had. I'm pretty sure it might have been just a gift from my mom. And like I said, I think I've iterated before that it was like her probably making the bulk of that choice. But if I'd have been in I don't remember for sure, but if I'd have been in a Nintendo aisle and saw this box, definitely cool enough to make me go, ooh, even though like my understanding of the IP is null and void pretty much, or nil, I should say, as a kid, because I certainly wasn't into the show or anything. And this was, as we mentioned, pre-movie. So not that movie really landed on me hard anyways, but even if it had, it would have been 2 years later. So
that's the crazy thing to me, because to me, I loved the rebooted movies. Like I thought they were so good. Like I really liked the Fester in those movies, like the story. Like I really remember liking the movies more than I expected it, because my aunt would like watch the TV show, and it's black and white, and I was like, so I'd watch it sometimes too, and it's like, it's whatever. But like those movies were really, really good. So in my mind, I'm still thinking these two are connected as well, even though this predates that. I don't know. Did I just play it a little later, perhaps? I don't know.
I don't even know if I've ever seen the first one. The second one, this is not something I remember concretely, but I have this vague belief that when Jab and I first I've said before, we didn't have cable growing up. We lived in the fucking middle of nowhere. And honestly, not even in the middle of nowhere, but we lived too far outside of Oberlin to have cable. It did not run down our street, or down our road, our state highway that we lived on. And my dad finally fucking splurged on a satellite dish, like one of the big fuckers that like have to like turn to fucking Jupiter, when you like change it. They were called galaxies, and like you had to change the galaxy. You could launch out the window and watch the fucking thing.
Oh yeah.
You could fucking turn and point at whatever the fuck it needed to point at in order to achieve the thing you were asking it to do. And then once you were on that galaxy, you could punch in the actual channel out of the 24 or whatever that were available on that galaxy, So like when we got that thing, you got HBO, and there was, you got like HBO West, HBO East, there were like HBO 2, there was a bunch of iterations of HBO. And the second one I remember was like early high school. So I want to say 95, 96. So I think that might have been right in line with the second one. The second one was playing hot on HBO at the time, I think. So I think I inevitably just consumed the second one just out of like HBO. I don't know if you remember having HBO as a kid, but they didn't have it was not like it is now. It's like 10 movies this month, and like those motherfuckers are just on repeat. So like you're watching, if you only have HBO, or HBO is the only movie channel you have, which is the only one we had, like you're gonna watch all 10 of those movies. This is the way it is. Whatever they are, So I think that's how I ended up watching the second one. But
actually, now that you mentioned that, with that timeline, that checks out, because we didn't move into the house that I lived in most of my life. Well, I moved in when I was 11, but I never had a Nintendo until after that. So like before that, it was all Atari. And so that was 91. So I never played Fester until after the movie came out. So to me, in my mind, that's
super
why.
linked.
So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, with the box, it's probably the best screenshot spread we've ever seen on the pod, I'd say. And each picture has a little caption that's just fine and dandy. Nothing too fun in there copy-wise, unfortunately, but very well done box in general. And then the manual, which will be in the show notes, is 16 pages with covers, full color throughout. So Sunsoft sparing no expense with this manual, which is great. And page 3 is a how to play chart, and it explains there are 3 top view levels. There's the outside street, underground sewers, and the UFO platform. And then screenshots accompany the first 2, and the UFO platform is just a big question mark on a black card, which is kind of cool. And there is also a 3D hallway view, which has a screenshot. And as you mentioned, that's the thing the NES games couldn't really do at the time, so they were pushing the envelope. And then pages 5 to 7 cover the menu screen, and there's a screenshot and then a key and breakdown of what it's comprised of. And there's an empty clue panel, and it's made of 5 pieces in all, it says, and a new piece will be added each time an enemy boss is destroyed. So that kind of explains like what you're out hunting for here, because this game is, it's not open world, but it is a little bit like part of the problem, I think, for kids consuming at the time, are like, just got dropped down, and it's like, okay, now what? I don't know. I'm just gonna wander around and shoot these frogs, but I don't really know. Every now and again, I find a house. I go into the sewer. I can't figure out how to get out of there. It's just like this game is a little bit, I think, for a kid, probably tough to figure out parts. So the more direction they can give you in the manual for the few kids that are going to read it, the better, probably. And they also explain the gun and whip power here. The max gun power is 8, whip power is 4. You don't start the game with the whip, but eventually you get it, and then you have to power it up just the same way the gun works. And then it goes through the different items and explains those. There's the bulb. Fester is very electric, but he'll need a bulb to turn on the lights while underground. So that was a cool application of his, like, one of his core IP functionalities. That was a cool implementation, even though the sewers suck in general. There's keys, which unlock buildings, of course. There's money. With 5 units, you can visit a hot dog stand and regain health. And there are the vice grips. And if an enemy mosquito stings you and slows you down, you use these to regain speed, which I don't understand how vice grips as an item possibly employ this way, but whatever. And or what they have to do, like, I don't know, like that's how I know I don't understand the IP, because I'm thinking like maybe vice grips are a thing that Wednesday fucks with. Like, it's, I don't know.
Oh, I remember. So I don't know if who, but I do remember seeing like Fester's head in a vice grip before. Like, I just remember that image.
Okay.
But if you think about it, like, if this is like an alien huge wasp thing, if it stings you, maybe you're swelling up huge. So you need that, and you can't like move. So you need that vice grip to like squeeze it out. You know what I mean? There's an image. There's a visual.
Quite the interpretation, Jay. Very, very forgiving interpretation.
It's logical to me. I'm rolling with it.
Okay. And then there's TNT. You can use the A button to deploy these time delay bombs. There's potions. They regain your health in full. Those are clutch. And then the invisible potions also. And I obviously is what I wrote here. And in actuality, though, they're not really invisible potions. They're invincibility potions.
Yes,
which
is so weird. Why did they name it that?
I don't know. Then there's missiles, and these can destroy several enemies at once. And they're pretty cool. Like a little fucking, like a crosshair comes on the screen and shows what it's targeting. Like, those are pretty cool. And then there's nooses, and for these are like your kind of smart bombs kind of deal. That's what I equate them to, the smart bomb in Gunsmoke. You use it and it just wipes out everything on the screen, and we'll talk about when we get there, but the way they employ it is also pretty cool, I think. It's a cool, even though I really, I don't know, part of it's just, I think, the way I fucking use these things. I just kind of want to basic bitch my way through and like conserve my items until later, and I just never end up using them. But like I was never, these items, a couple of the boss fights, mostly at Nintendo Power's direction and that feature I was using, I would employ them. But like for the most part, like I'm just fucking not even bothering. It's just too much of a pain to even bother to go to the screen to select and use these things.
Plus, you didn't want to run out. Like, I didn't want to be on a boss where I needed missiles, and I wasted them on some stupid
ass enemy. Sure, right. So then houses are explained on page 8, which is where you get these items. There's 7 in the game. Each one has a member of the family waiting to give you shit, one of these items. There's Pugsley, Wednesday, Thing, Morticia, and Mama. And then items given will be fully replenished after each time a new boss is destroyed. And that's clutch information to know in your the way you approach boss fights, probably. And pages 10 to 11 get into the buildings, bosses, and alien enemies. There's some hot tips in here, too. There, it tells you there's 6 buildings, most of which have bosses. And that's keyword there is most. And there is 1 building off the path with no boss. and that one contains a secret item located behind a wall in the dead end that will increase your health from 2 to, it says 2 to 4 here. I wrote down. Is that what it says in the manual? 'Cause that's not. It's not the way you
It
get
does
the
say
way
2
you,
to 4 here, yeah.
does it? Yeah, the fourth one doesn't come from that.
Do you know how many times I've walked around in that building at first? Like, where is this? Like,
Yeah.
I've gone to every way. Like,
Dude,
where
as a
there's
kid,
no fourth.
I knew
Nice.
I had read, because I didn't have that issue. We've talked about that. I wasn't on Nintendo
Mhm.
Power's team yet, so I didn't have that issue. So I didn't have the explicit explanation of it. And I had gleaned that information from somewhere that it was inside a building that you got the health unit. And dude, like I said, I had this game and like I couldn't get anywhere as a kid. It was hard enough to continue. Same thing. I just wanted those buildings forever, man. I just didn't. Yeah, I did not. I remember just as a kid being totally deflated about my inability to find that fucking thing, you know, because that's such also just a huge quality of life improvement with a game that is difficult, you know, just like essentially fucking 150% of your fucking resource that keeps you alive. Like, fuck, that's a huge difference. And to not be able to find it was so deflating. And then in the bosses, you are told you'll need a fully powered whip to defeat some of them. And I don't know if I feel like that ever came to fruition in the same way, or in that, like, I don't think I ever needed a whip to actually beat a boss.
Maybe it's just because of the turbo. I can tell you, because I definitely needed that advice. I was like, sweet. As soon as I got the whip and powered it up, I was like, yes, you know, okay. Nuke City.
I think there was.
And that was pre-NES Advantage. So
there was one where I did use the whip, I think, maybe, yeah. Okay, anyways. So the last page before the FCC regulation legalese nonsense is game hints. And the second one is the use of a turbo-type joystick with rapid-fire feature will be quite helpful. Use my NES Advantage, you say? You got it. So the last one says, try to go slow in hallways and keep track of where you are. If you exit a building by accident, you must use a key to re-enter and find the alien boss, aka Suck City. That is something, if you're not using those maps in Nintendo Power, you can easily wander back out of those buildings and be dumped right back out in the front, and you just need to use a key again. And like, those are not necessarily the most scarce resource, but early in the game, you might run out, and that is like just fucking just suck, you know, that those buildings are so nondescript inside that you can just walk right back out the same door you came in and not even know you're doing it. It's just like, super Suck City, man. So agreed. The last thing we do in this section is the economic analysis, and I got one for the first time in a long time, Jay. So let's talk some numbers here. Right. We are going to examine the cost of hot dogs throughout the history of hot dogs in the U.S. of A. So, all right. Yeah. First up is a little hot dog history lesson, and I am citing an Alexia Wolf article from April on theculturetrip.com with this information here. So, its origins can be traced back as early as 700 BCE with its appearance in Homer's Odyssey, but some historians believe the first sausage was not created until the 1st century CE. Legend has it that Emperor Nero's cook, Gaius, stuck a knife into a roasted pig that had not been cleaned thoroughly, and the puffed, empty intestines, so disgusting, and the puffed, empty intestines just fell out. He exclaimed at his discovery and tried filling the casing with ground meat and spices. Over the course of the following centuries, the sausage traveled across Europe, making its way to Germany, a country that came to adopt the wiener as its own. Today, Frankfurt and Vienna both lay claim to the creation of this contemporary German staple. So, many German immigrants came to the New World in the 1800s, bringing their culinary traditions with them, of course, and it is believed that the first hot dogs, called Dachshund sausages, were sold by a German immigrant out of a food cart in New York in the 1860s, where everything starts, and perhaps explaining how they got their canine name. And by 1893, the hot dog was a favorite baseball park treat. Some believe this is because of Chris von der whatever, the owner of the St. Louis Browns and a local bar, who introduced hot dogs to pair with his beer. Others claim it was Harry Stevens, a concessionaire at the New York Giants baseball stadium, who popularized them at sporting games as well. And then probably where the modern iteration of what hot dogs came to be or are now originates with Nathan Handwerker, who opened up his first Nathan's stand in Coney Island in 1916. And he did this undercutting the competition, selling. So there was like a nearby on the boardwalk stand or something that was selling these babies for 10 cents a piece. And he was like, fuck that, I'm gonna do it for 5. And he just like wasted the whatever the other stand was. And he ended up, those ended up getting fucking franchised and, started spreading across the entire country to the point where in 1939, a famous and still standing Pink's hot dog stand, which I've driven by many times here since I moved to LA, probably even before I moved to LA. And that was opened up and started turning out dogs in LA in 39. So it traveled all the way across the country, just like I would do 79 short years later. And I guess, what is that, 23 years? So that's how they kind of spread across the U.S. and became an American staple of sorts. And then let's get into the numbers of this little plan or this little quest here. There's a website called in2013dollars.com that is the consumer price index data for hot dogs from 1951 to 2021 specifically. And they are quoting an inflation rate of 2.94% over that 70-year span, which is lower than the overall average inflation rate of 3.38%. So hot dogs are... They're I don't know, the economy of hot dogs is a more conservatively growing one than the overall economy, I guess is the way to look at it.
You can always rely on hot dogs.
Yeah.
Keep it as it is.
Yeah, another website I used was Statista.com, and they still, it's not gone, have 2019 prices for hot dogs at MLB ballparks, which was the last viable data, really, I think, given 2020 was a sports wash, right? So the cheapest dog in the league was Oriole Park at Camden Yards at $1.50 a pop. The most expensive is at National Park in DC at $7. And how is that for an economics lesson, Jay?
What?
That, like, in supply and demand. So those parks are a whopping 38 miles apart from each other. And I don't know, it's just such and there's that, I don't know if you've ever been to Baltimore, but Baltimore's a shithole. And like, obviously DC is DC. So like, it's funny. It's just such a perfect, I don't know. It's just American economics in a nutshell to me. I don't exactly know how to express it beyond that, but like, it is just exactly how America.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Works,
$1 anything at a ballpark is like, what?
Insane, right? Yeah, but it's in a shithole. So to get people to spend the money to come there, they try to sell dogs at a super cheap price. So the league average comes out to about $4.95 per dog, which is pretty close. I think Cleveland was just a hair under that.
Hey, that's like 5 units, right? That's like, what did you say, 5 units in the
Right, but here's the thing. So a $5 hot dog, the cost of a hot dog in Fester Quest was $19.89. So you move forward the average rate of inflation from 89 over the next 30 years to 2019, that number would be 10.02 in 2019. So that means we are getting absolutely fucking hosed by the dog vendors in the game, which should be no surprise given the rest of the play experience. I mean, realistically, but so that's coming forward. If you're going backwards to Nathan's 5-cent dogs, we are also getting hosed, as you kind of might assume. I mean, obviously those were like, he was trying to create a business and in turn, selling them at a discounted rate. But the cumulative inflation rate from 1916 to 1989 is a little over 1,000%. Comes out to 57 cents. So the dog CPI data suggests dog inflation numbers average lower than the general inflation rate of 51 to 2021. So, it would be even less, really. So if that stayed true, obviously the overall dog inflation rate doesn't necessarily have to be from 1916 to 1989 what it was, or to 1951 rather, what it was from 51 to 21. So maybe that's maybe the inflation rate for dogs is astronomically higher. I doubt it though. Yeah.
Hey, after that, baby boomers, everybody, things change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they wanted to go out and start doing blow and neglect their children, so they just leave them at home, make hot dogs. Maybe the hot dog demand went up. Very, very possible. Anyways, the moral of the story behind the numbers: this game is one big fucking hose job. that is the prologue theme from Fester's Quest, bringing us into our playthrough of the game. And we start with the title screen, as we always do. And on Power On, we are looking at the Addams Family Mansion. It's bathed in moonlight. A soothing little music ditty plays. The one we just heard, actually. And our view pans over to Fester sitting on a lounge chair, as you can see there behind Jay. He's got a frosty beverage in hand. He's got like the magician hat on.
Yeah, that's a party hat. It's kind of magician.
Is that a party hat? Okay,
but I guess maybe he's not.
With the stars. Yeah, I mean, the party hat makes more sense. That's a better interpretation. And there's a cityscape off in the distance behind him, and he looks to be enjoying himself, just in a general sense. And then a huge flying saucer scoots in from frame left. It gets Fester's attention, and he looks over. He turns his head, looks over at it, and it stops over the city, and a beam of light projects from it down onto the heart of the city. And his jaw drops. You can see like his head's turned away. Like, and this is just kind of a testament to the quality of this animation. I think like this opening sequence is fucking great. And again, that's Sunsoft is fucking phenomenal. The Batman cutscenes are fantastic. They do a fantastic job of the shit. But so yeah, you can see his jaw drop, even though his head's turned away from you, or from the perspective of the audience. And then he turns back to camera, and his sunglasses are popped up, and his eyes are wide open. And then it cuts to the title screen, which is a very like colorful deal, despite it only being the title and some legalese. And then the theme song rips fucking in, and it is just a fantastic opening to an NES video game, And when you hit start, you get a menu on a black card. It's start or continue, and the continue is just to continue where you played to since turning the machine on. So there's no password option or any bullshit like that with this game. It's just, continue where you died last. And even in that case, and this is one of the things the game's most notorious about, when you do continue, you start from the beginning. You have the stuff that you've accumulated, but you start at the very beginning, which sucks. And I, even think about it, like, it's not thinking about that after having played through the whole game. Like, that's really not that punitive. But if you don't know the scope of this game and kind of how, you would have to go through the sewers and stuff, but like that really isn't that hard. If you just know where you're going, which that's just the problem with this game. Like as a kid, you just didn't know where you were going. You had no idea what you were doing. So like to be dropped back at the beginning was so defeating and deflating. I think that, that had a lot to do with this like sentiment about this video game being so,
Yeah, man. Having the Nintendo Power that we do with the maps and kind of knowing like I got to go to this sewer and then this way, like knowing that now, it's like, oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah, dude, I just blew through. Yeah, I mean, like all the comments on on the Insta and the Facebook, talking like, oh, you're playing this fucking game, like, oh, this game is the worst, so fucking hard. It's like, I mean, granted, I'm save stating, and that turbo button is turned up hot, but I just blew through this game. Like I was literally, I told you it was just like I'll say it a million times throughout this podcast. This game felt like a fucking boss battle conveyor belt. I would just do a boss battle and then just auto coast to the next boss battle, and there's 5 of those and then the UFO. And like the UFO had a little bit of like indecision / you can get lost maybe. And I guess the quasi difficulty, but generally speaking, like I just like went, right through it in a in an unenjoyable way. Anyways, so you're just firing this thing up. So start and continue to do the same thing in this case. It's funny that they'll let you select continue though. You do start at the beginning, with nothing, which is funny, as opposed to just removing it from the menu entirely. Anyways, that beginning is just a city street, and Fester has lost his hat and shades and is now just in his signature black shroud. His bald head glares in the daylight, and his gun sticks out in front of the sprite. And so this is as you mentioned in the opening segment, it's like a top-down vantage point. It's got a slight tilt to give the player like a little bit of depth perception, but it's pretty, for the most part, just a top-down deal. And then the controls HUD situation, there's not much of a HUD cluttering up your view at all. It's just a health bar in the top left that reads 2 units currently. And the D-pad moves, B shoots, A seemingly does fuck all right now because you have no items, but that's what it does. It uses the items whenever you select them from the menu. Select is pause. That's just how Sunsoft rolls, and I hate that. But the start button brings up the menu, And the menu has the clue panel, your gun and whip levels. We already explained all this. And I'd say, I mean, the whole thing, it looks great. Like as far as the menu, we didn't mention that. Like the actual menu screen is really fucking good looking. It's got like a panel border and a selection tool have kind of the same ornate design to them, so there's thought and effort put into even the menus. So that's all very good. And yeah, let's talk about this fucking start area here. So you're on the street, and in front of you are some bulbous spore things. They're called globules in the manual. They present no threat whatsoever. They're essentially just pickup farms is what they are. And from these fucking things, you can find keys, you get light bulbs, you'll get the power up and power down pickups for the gun. And we should talk about those right up front here because they are a huge part, I think, of the opaqueness and confusion of this game, perhaps. If you're not reading the manual and you don't know that the blue ones are up, the red ones are down, you can walk around this game and really fuck your life up, basically. And like, honestly, like, that raises the question, like, why would you ever pick up a red one? Why would you ever do that? Why would you ever want to power down? And the answer to that is you wouldn't try to, probably, but there's just so many goddamn things being dropped around you at all times as you frag the relentlessly spawning enemies. It's hard to avoid them sometimes when you're not incredibly dialed in, or even if you are, frankly. I mean, even if you are really dialed in, paying attention, you can easily still walk over one and get that power down and just be like, fuck, safe state.
We'll talk about it later, but that's what happened to me. And I was like,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Super suck thing, man. And so from the dead end you start on, you can walk right, and you hit an intersection that's blocked off to the north by like a chasm or like a thing that's opened up in the street, and you're heading south by default, essentially. And the next intersection down has a westward path, and north from that you can find houses manned by both Pugsley and Wednesday, so you get your first interaction with the family. And the former Pugsley gives you TNT. Wednesday, the latter, gives you vice grips. TNT blows shit up, as you might guess. The vice grips will leave you from the stun slow shit that happens from the mosquitoes that come out of the I forget what those are called. I think I have it written down here somewhere later. You have to go to the menu, though, and you have to select every one of these things, even keys and the money and shit, and then hit the A button. Like, even when you're walking into one of these, and you have to use a key to get into the houses, and you have to hit the A button while running into the door to enter the houses. And it's just a groan, it's just needless tedium to use an item that should just be automatic, So that sucks. And then there's also a hot dog stand in here. And as the manual mentioned, a 5-spot gets you 1 life back, one life unit back. Or no, check that. I think it heals you entirely. I don't think it's just 1 life unit, is it?
I think it just heals you.
Yeah, it heals you all the way. So,
yeah.
But you also have to select money to engage those. And that is just such a dumb runaround thing. And then lastly, there's a stairwell in here heading down that I couldn't seem like this. I couldn't figure out how to do it. When I first, and like I had this game as a kid, and like I first got it, and I was walking around the stairwell, and I was like, what the fuck? Because the A button has been taught to me as used for items. I don't want to use an item right now. So like you have to hit the
A button. Serious?
Yeah, to go down to go while standing on the stair. And that's like an annoying thing because when you get down into the sewer, the first thing you want to do is use a light bulb. But if you don't move off that stairwell in the dark first, you're just going to go back upstairs. So
absolutely
should have figured out something better. Need to figure out something better at the lab before putting this out, because that is just awful, So
at least I don't drop enemies right there immediately. Like
that's true.
It was always my fear that if I took too long, an enemy was going to spawn, and it was going to be dark, and it was going to get me while I was trying to switch items. But that never happened. So at least
that's true. Yeah, I can't think of an instance where I thought, yeah, you're right, but still sucks. So like by the time I had gotten to this part, just where that stairwell and those 2 first houses are, I had already got my gun to level 5. So like, I guess we could talk about the progression of the gun system. So it starts as a straightforward pea shooter of these like little green slime ball things or something, and those are like the whole level system is like 2 at a time. So like the look of your projectiles change every 2 levels. So 1 and 2 are both those little green things. The second one is theoretically a more powerful version of it. And then levels 3, 4 are a peach-colored boomerang projectile that travel in like a sine wave pattern, or a back and forth pattern. There's only one of them. And that's 3 and 4. Then levels 5 and 6 are a black cannonball that travels in a circular pattern. And I would say that like those two, like the 5 and 6 level ones with the black balls, felt like they had a little bit of a, like their actual path changed a little bit. Either one was a little tighter of a thing, or
it was much wider. It was
okay,
much wider
is that what
because
it
that's
was? Okay.
why you'd be screwed going down. Like
Right.
if you're on the second level of those later ones, like you were screwed going, or the first level, you know,
Yeah, it's
you
just
go down the
fucking,
shooter,
it just
you
goes
can't
right into
hit
the wall.
anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is therein lies the biggest shit about this game, I think, is that the projectiles stop when they hit an inanimate object. So some of these things, flight paths, yes, flare out from the track that Fester is on while you're shooting. You know what I mean? Or the whatever, the lines that your sprite is walking on, they'll flare out some. And like if you were in a tight space, these wider projectiles will just essentially die right in front of Fester before they get anywhere near the enemy that you're trying to shoot when you're hitting that button, you know? And it is awful, awful, awful. So much of
there's a rat coming towards you. Oh, guess what? You're getting hit by a rat because you have a big weapon.
Because your projectile is hitting the other wall, is going into the other wall. Because like that's actually, the rats are the one time where that shitty thing can be like a boon, because you're just like scraping the wall with
if they're on the wall.
If they're on the wall that you're on. Well, the rats are always on a wall.
No,
it's just
sometimes they go in the middle. Yeah,
do they?
Sometimes they go in the middle.
I was thinking they just go on the different walls. But yeah, either way, yeah. If they're not on the wall that your shit's dying into, you're probably going to take an L from a fucking rat, and that's, you know, the most basic enemy in the game. You shouldn't have to do that.
So that's actually why my knowledge, you know, knowing the game the way, or knowing video games the way that I do now, having the map here with Into the Power, I honestly just grinded back and forth up and down that first street until I got the level 8 gun, and then went into the sewers.
That was smart.
Because I forgot that we could level up the guns, even though I read the manual. Something about me, like when I was playing, I was like, oh, I forgot you can level them up. But then the minute I got in the sewers and realized my weapon was too big, I was like, nope, screw that. So I left, just leveled back and forth up until I got to the highest gun, and then went in the sewers.
That was smart.
Forget that.
I did not want to grind. I dealt with my nerfed gun for the first part of the game, unfortunately. The enemies actually presenting danger here in this first area are 4 colors of frogs. There's orange, blue, pink, green, and what the manual calls skeeters. And the orange and blue frogs are bullshit. They die easily. The green and pink ones require far more damage done to them to die. Excuse me. And they both have attack modes. So like the green one has an arrow tongue that comes out in front of it, and the pink has like a 3-pronged spread projectile that they spit out. And like, it's interesting to say that like the enemy sprites can't, or the enemy frogs rather, can't turn. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Their projectile for the pink and green ones always goes down. You know, which is like I don't know, that sucks.
I like it as a design.
Oh yeah, I mean it's easier. It's easier and more predictable for sure. But like, you know, again, part of my bitch about this game is how the overworld and sewers are it's a fucking wasteland when it comes to like actual video game engagement. It's just like I'm not paying attention to what's happening. It doesn't matter. I'm just on a conveyor belt again. Like I'm just getting to the next boss. Like there's nothing happening out here. That's like the only difficulties that are presented to me they're not dexterity or video game skill based. They are my fucking bullets die in the bushes.
But I think that may be also because you were encouraged to use the NES advantage. Because like before I had that, I was so engaged because I actively had to like jump around a bush to survive the pink ones because I couldn't freaking press B fast enough to kill it all the time. Unless I had the max gun. If I lost the max gun, I have to like maneuver and like freaking act like I'm a commando to escape these things.
Yeah, hit and run. You have to hit and run. Yeah, I know. I know that's part of what's behind that, but that still sucks, man. It's not.
It's like one or the other. It's either this is too hard almost. Right. Like it's fun.
Exactly.
It's fun, but daggone it. But then getting the advantage, and it's like, wow, I can nuke these things. And now I'm just like wasting everything, you know?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. There's no. It needs a middle ground. That's a good way to put it. You need a middle ground in there, and that's somewhere between those two for this game to really be fun, I think, or at least those parts of the game to be fun. Anyways, the skeeters don't move; they just spew. That's what those things are called, the little heads that spit out the mosquitoes. They just literally, as you get near them, mosquitoes start flying out, and they stay in like this very specific contained pattern around them. They don't just thankfully go everywhere all over the screen. That would suck. Because when they hit you, you slowed. Your guy flashes. You don't take any damage, thankfully, but your fester starts flashing, and you move so slow. So you have to use a vice grip. Like I can't even imagine. Like I don't know. I can't. You get I think 20 of them when you 15 or 20, like an amount that if you got hit by that many mosquitoes before finishing the next boss, you'd probably kill yourself anyway. So thankfully you can never get to a place where this happens. But if you were to not have vice grips and have to walk around at that speed, you'd break your Nintendo. You just fucking slam your fucking controller to the Nintendo. It would be so awful.
Yeah, but if you're using that many of them, what are you even doing? Are you paying attention at all?
Well, that's what I mean. It's you'd have to really be fucking off for that to be the case. But there are probably plenty of kids that got there, like younger kids that didn't understand what they were doing in this game. There were probably plenty that had that happen to them. They didn't even know that's what was happening to them. They had to be that young. But nonetheless, it has happened in the timeline of video game existence. Yeah. So to the south of those houses is a little park with another hot dog stand and a stairwell heading down to the sewer, just as the one by the houses does. So the one is a dead end, essentially. I think the one by the houses is a dead end. One of the two of those two stairwells down is just a dead end of the sewer, basically. You have to go back out and go to the stairwell, whichever one it is. So you get down the sewer part that matters. And yeah, when you go down here, it's dark, which means you have to employ the character trait that Fester is perhaps most known for, being able to put a light bulb in his mouth and illuminate it. And I haven't watched much Addams Family content at all. I told you I didn't watch the first movie, really, and I didn't really watch the show, but I know that he does this. Like this is a IP trait for this character that has permeated into just the general American consciousness, I think, which is a testament to what this IP is, I think. So, speaking of, which we haven't talked about yet, Uncle Fester was played by Jackie Coogan in the original television iteration, a big-time character actor at the time. I don't know if you knew that or not. I didn't really. But the dude, he's got a pretty cool backstory, dude. The dude came out of a vaudevillian family that had him performing publicly by age 4, dude. It's a 4-year-old kid that started as like a performer and, traveling fucking vaudeville shows. And he ended up working into his late 60s on countless TV and film appearances. So that was the TV iteration. And then the man, the myth, the legend, Christopher Lloyd, who is still kicking and still doing cool movies, would play the character in the 1991 film that was coming down the pipe at the time. This game hit store shelves, as we've talked about extensively already as well. So just wanted to throw that stuff out there about the actors that have made this character what he is. And so down the sewer, there are new enemies down here, including slime replicators, described in the manual as these slime balls will only multiply if you shoot them. Your best bet is to sneak around them. And I strongly disagree, as they are easily dispatched without posing any significant threat whatsoever and are great pickup farms. And the Nintendo Power feature supports my perspective. See page 39, so I feel validated.
100%. I'm like, I'm killing these things. Why would I not?
Right,
of course.
Yeah, the only downside to it is so many items come out of them that you might pick up a red pickup and not even know it was there. Because there's so many pickup sprites on top of each other in that one place. So there are also rats, which hug the walls of the tunnels, like we already talked about. And then I finally hit level 7 with the gun down here, and that turns into these two crossing patterns of arrows. That was the motion I was thinking of when I was talking about the level 3, 4 ones. And they're a major step up in attacking efficiency and effectiveness, because like the wave is tight enough to still work for the most part in these tunnels, or at worst, even when you're in the really tight ones, it's hitting both walls, so it gets those rats, regardless of which wall they're on. And level 8 is 3 straight beams of these same arrows, essentially attacking the entire height range of Fester, which is clutch when factoring in turbo controls, especially because it effectively creates a force field in front of your character. Like there's just there's no permeating as long as you're facing the direction of the enemy, you can't get fucked with, you know. So it takes,
when I realized that was a game changer, because I was using the whip like later on, and I was like, wait a minute, like with the turbo and these three, like I don't have to, like nothing can hit me from the front.
Yeah, the whip is, if you have turbo, I mean, like I already said, I only used it. I think there was one boss battle where I was like, okay, this is the most effective way to do this, but that was the only time that I was really inclined. I wasn't even bothering, like to the point I was so not interested in it that I wasn't even picking the power ups. Like when I needed to get the flame whip, because it tells you that you need the flame whip, I think for the final boss, I think it tells you to make sure you're powered up for that. So which like going that last part of the game, I had to go out of my way to farm for a second and get my whip to the final 4th level before I went into the final area, you know. So yeah, that's how little attention I paid to the whip.
Wow, we had such different experiences. We'll get
yeah. So very early on down here, like once I got to the bridge area of this sewer thing, I would hit what I call the adult recall threshold for this game. So basically what I remember having accomplished in my sporadic whacks at it, trying to play this as an adult. And from here on out, it was kind of like playing the game anew, essentially, you know what I mean?
Wow.
So like I made it further than this as a kid, but like that was so long ago that the memories are just wiped from my drunken like college beer bong addled mind, you know. Like so it pretty much like playing a game new from here on out. And coming out of those bridges, you enter a drain tube little area that leads to a ladder going back up to the overworld, and you're on the other side of the chasm you pass by to the north in the very first area. So that kind of like that's like smart game design, I think, in that it teaches you that you have to use these sewers to get to the other parts of the game. Like you can recognize, like if they dropped you in an unrecognizable place, you probably wouldn't register that. You know what I mean? So I think that's commendable game design. The overworld area 2 here is what I'm calling, like that's why I like it. Basically, like the way I titled these things in my notes is like overworld area 2, sewer 2, fucking overworld area 3, sewer 3, and that's just how I fucking made sense of it all, because it really when we try to do these episodes where it's a game like again kind of open worldy, it's just like, how do I structure this? Luckily this game, like it feels like, looking at the map you think that, but in reality, like you already mentioned, like it is a very railroaded linear experience for sure. You know what I mean? Like it's not nearly as aimless maybe as looking at a map might suggest.
Yeah, which is funny because knowing how it's laid out now, I'm just thinking, okay, from boss to boss, that's the stage. Until I get to a boss, that's stage 1. Until I get to the second boss, that's stage 2. This is how we're working.
Yep.
Especially knowing that you get refills of all your items afterwards. So I'm like, all right, logical.
Yeah, it is very formulaic in that way. So the frogs are fucking everywhere up here, and you're introduced to giant jumping fleas, I think they are, like the big hopping things. And I died here for the first time. So yeah, it cuts to, when you die, it cuts to a black card, and the Addams Family theme just rips in, which is cool, I think. It's like, it's almost, again, that's the best part of this game. So it's a funny, I don't know, like fucking consolation prize or something for dying. You know, it's like you know, you could be more pissed off if it didn't have that song for sure. You know what I mean? So that's funny to me.
Dude, I died here so many times. This is the death spot. Like these pink, because this is the first time where you encounter the pink frogs. Okay. And if you're unlucky, you encounter the pink frogs here.
No, dude, no. If there's no reason to go down there, but there are actually pink frogs when you on that first area. If you go to the right to that wall, there are some pink frogs over there. But
that's right.
If you're looking at a map, there's no reason to go there at all.
I think that's why. Like I maybe went there once just to make sure there was nothing there. Yeah. But yeah, so here I died many times because again, I don't have the NES advantage yet, so I'm just like jamming, you know, and it's just not working. So I'm like dashing to the left to like go around the bush. This part like took me so long because but sometimes you don't encounter the pink frogs here, so I had to get lucky.
Oh, you could definitely cheese. You can cheese spawn for sure, because the spawning is so relentless that, you know, whatever the fuck code generates that thing is no question not reliable or anything, you know. So yeah, you can absolutely like just fucking, you know, run a certain way and clip something off the screen and it's gone, you know. So that's a tactic you can use especially if you have the turbo shit. And they also, it's worth mentioning too, like you mentioned the benches, like that's really the only
It's generally cover.
Cover, right? Exactly. Yeah. They're the only thing that like is in the streets that you can use, and thankfully the frog projectiles or any projectile. Well, I don't know. The mosquitoes might be able to go over top the benches. I'm not sure, but because those can go over the bushes and shit too. So the mosquitoes can go anywhere, but again, like I said, those stay to a contained area. But yeah, the actual frog fucking bullets you can hide behind, and they can't. They definitely can't jump past or through them either. So you can use those if you're good enough to like run behind and past. So. That's and that I guess you're it is probably just entirely the turbo thing, I guess, because that is obviously like that's the thing. Like I didn't have to think about evasion. I just lay waste to everything, So like if I did feel compelled to evade, then that would probably change my level of engagement, obviously, on these overworld things. But again, needed a middle ground.
This hot dog stand was I stopped at this hot dog stand a lot.
This is fucking one of Nathan's franchisees here. This guy was fucking killing it.
And I used often was this one. After this, I was okay, but like right here, it just was a tough spot.
Yeah. So I mentioned there's that hot dog stand to the right there, and to the left is a house with Thing hanging out, and he gives you potions of the healing variety, which is a hot come up for sure, 5 of them.
Yeah.
Which is, it's kind of like that is a good amount, I think, like to have for one sequence between 2 bosses. You know what I mean? It's like you feel compelled to save them for the boss battles, and then that's and you usually run out by the end of the boss battle. So that's like the right amount, clearly, Yep. So after scoring those, you should head north to the building labeled 5 on the Nintendo Power map, in which there's no boss, but you can cop another health unit in this baby. And this is when we both learned that most of the ROMs in circulation for this title are fucking broke. So when you use a key to enter the 3D buildings, and I guess it's the Japanese ROM or something. It's not, again, I had to go out and do research to figure like exactly what this was, and I still don't completely understand. But so when we were first playing this with the ROM that we had in the library, and also from the websites that we usually go to for any ROMs we don't actually have, the game would crash and restart at the top of the title sequence just automatically, And I had to solve this problem. Like you were just like at the end, you were at wit's end. I hadn't even started playing yet, so I was still shooting. So like you were like, dude, it doesn't work. I'm like, dude, there's no way, man. Like, what do you mean? Which is also another. Again, we talked. Remember how I said the times as an adult, I had just turned it on and tried to fuck with it. Like never getting past that point. This is certification of that, because like that's the ROM I've always had. I've had that ROM since the late 90s, and did not know that it was broke. So I'm sure I've turned it on and fucked around with it numerous times in 20 fucking some years. So the fact that I never got that far is a testament to how, I guess, not engaging again the overworld is and shit. I was just like, fuck this. Even though I had it, I still just like don't have enough nostalgia to fuel me through this. So. Anyways, so I had to hunt down an obscure Reddit post from 2017 in which the solution was spoken of by the participants in the conversation, but there were no links because of rules. So I had to directly PM the accounts that were discussing it, and one of them led me to the promised land, essentially. So we had what's called the good set ROM, and we needed the no intro version. And like they even talked about this in the conversation, like because someone said that like you need the no intro version, and someone was like, I don't care about the intro. Like, what do you mean the intro's cool? Like I don't not want the intro. It's maybe the best part of the game. Right. And it's like it's nothing to do with the traditional definition of intro. It's just terminology. So it's essentially the USA version, not the U version. So like when you see these ROMs out in the wild, like some of them there'll be like there's an exclamation mark one, there's one that's just a U, there's one that says USA, and we needed the USA version, not the U version for our emulators, like for whatever fucking reason it doesn't work. So but not doesn't work, like doesn't work at that one part, which is fucking weird, right? So I don't know what the science is behind that specifically, but there is some. So I copped it from a full ROM set on archive.org of all places, like
Interesting.
I'm kind of surprised that is I've never thought about going to archive.org for ROMs because that I thought was illegal. I don't know, like, whatever. I told you I'd figured out, and I did. And who's your nostalgia daddy, Jay?
I'm glad you found it because I was done. I played through different to this part so many times trying to verify, is it this ROM? Should I switch to this one? Let me go over to my Mac. I was just like, what is happening?
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, on romsdownload.net, they have, there's two of them on there, and one of them's like the Play Choice 10 version. So like, the Play Choice 10 has 10 games in it, so like I had mine in my library. It happened, so I was like, fuck. So I went and downloaded the new one. I tried it there and it happened, and I was like, I messaged you and I was like, did you try that other one on the ROMs download things? I was like, I was about to try it a third time and get all the way to that point, which is it's not terribly far, but it's more than you want.
Annoying.
It's
especially if you're grinding like I was to try to make it like, because you want to,
Right.
play it the right way.
Exactly right. Yeah. So yeah, it's like, it's a solid probably 8 minutes maybe that I didn't want to burn. And so yeah, I asked you, I was like, did you try that Play Choice 7 one? You're like, yeah, it doesn't work either. I was like, fuck. So that's what I started hunting. But yeah, I was like, I would do that. In my mind, I was running ideas about like, what are we gonna do instead? Like, what other games do we talk about? Are we just gonna play Shinobi? Like, what's like? I was that close to being like, fuck it. Like, I don't want to play this game.
I didn't know what else to do, man. I'd throw my hands up. I told you, I was like, I don't know. I got nothing.
Yeah, I'm good at internet. Anyhow, back to boss buildings. The music in these things is fucking dope. And it's spooky, which is apropos, considering it's very much a wait and see what's around the corner vibe in these buildings, because you can't attack or anything. So it's just kind of like, what are you going to find, And you would soon find, eventually, like nothing until you find another door and it's the boss. Or this one life unit in the one building. But other than that, there's just nothing in these fucking things. And yeah, to get the health unit in this, you have to run into a wall at the end of the short corridor in the northeast corner of the Nintendo Power map. To score, you get a third health box, which is, goes without saying, is an immeasurably clutch quality of life improvement in the game. And I was tempted, as you might think or might have assumed, Jay, I don't know if it crossed your mind when you look at these buildings. I was tempted to make maps of these basic bitch ass buildings. I thought about breaking out the graph paper, but then I got a grip on reality and decided that would be psychotic behavior because these buildings are bullshit, But
Dude,
I definitely
100% expected you to make maps. 100%. I was like, they're right here in Into the Power, and they're very basic. But I was like, he's going to do it anyway.
Because he's a fucking psychopath, right? Yeah, no, I didn't do it. I thought about it. If I'd enjoyed the game a little more, I probably would have. Like, that was part of the thing. Like, I was already, like, I just come out of that fucking emulation problem, so I was already, like, fucking on edge a little bit. If I'd have been in a better place emotionally, I might have still done it. Anyway, there's a second door that pointlessly dumps you off the side of the building in this place. So you do have to go through it. It's not just a offshoot, So it's kind of teaching you the way these buildings work. Coming out of there, you can make a pit stop at another thing-laden house where you get potions of, as we described, the invisible variety, but they're actually more like an invincibility deal. And it's worth mentioning, we didn't say it, but Thing... he really gets to, like, Thing is in a lot of the houses. Like, Thing really gets around for being just a little disembodied hand, Like, it's the only one of the characters that is in multiple houses. You know what I mean? And that's interesting.
It was because he's little. He can, like, escape the aliens without being seen.
Perhaps without being detectable. There you go. Yeah, you're fantastic at making narrative justifications for this game's shortcomings. So you come out of there and you go down into the sewer, another sewer deal, and there's just, I don't know, man, there's like nothing new whatsoever about this sewer stretch. It's all the same brick, same water aesthetic, all the same enemies, frog slime, some of those pink brewing pricks we haven't mentioned yet, but they were in the earlier part. And you emerge out of there in a little area partitioned off, basically just for the building label number 6 on the Nintendo Power map. And it's McWimpy is the name of the boss for this building. There's nothing else to do out here. So you just go to the building and you're back in a first person deal, and there's just, again, nothing to do in these buildings. like the only potential bad outcome, if you don't consider the boss battles bad, is wandering back out the door to where you came from. You know what I mean? I kind
of like that though. Like, I kind of like that it's not it's not a Dragon Warrior situation where you go into place, this place where you have to chart a course, first of all, because it's like a labyrinth, and second of all, you're just running into stuff like fighting all the time. Like that would be worse. I like that this is kind of like figure it out and then it's fight
calm,
time. Yeah.
calm. Okay.
Because for me, I'm still battling things, and we'll get to it. But McWimpy was tough at first.
Was he? Oh,
yeah.
Good. So hopefully you wander into the right door, and then it is boss battle time. And yes, McWimpy is it's like a big goblin-looking sprite he's got arms that can extend out like whips. And the battle arena, in a direct bite off Sunsoft's predecessor Blaster Master, is just an all-black empty space, and it's cool despite being unoriginal. It is cool, but so these things happen just on a black screen, you and the boss, mano a mano, which is it's a cool vibe for a boss battle. And the Nintendo Power tip suggests to break out your TNT. And I listen to Nintendo Power like a good little gamer, so I did just that. You can just basically walk to the side of the screen McWimp isn't on, drop your stick of dynamite, and because he's on this one horizontal path, he cannot move vertically. So you drop that TNT over there, and then kind of just lure him that way, and he'll walk right on top of the fucking TNT basically. And because the TNT, it calls it time delayed, but it's actually contact motivated. Like when they walk on top of it, it explodes, So that's how I wasted the very first time without even having to use weapons, really. I just fucking TNT'd his ass.
What?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think maybe I was just too burnt from the emulation stuff. That like once I finally got to the boss, I wasn't looking at Nintendo Power. I was just shooting him with the guns and
tanking him.
Dude, yeah, just trying to position myself in between each of his arms because he'll drop like one long arm, and as long as you're right in the middle, you can keep shooting. Yeah. But then he'll scoot over to match you, so you have to scoot over again and shoot. So I just kept doing that. But like at first, he was killing me. So once I figured it out, I was good to go though.
So that's how you killed him with the guns. Yep. Did you do any potion action? Is that?
No, I think I used. I mean, I think I may have used a potion just to like if I got hit at first because I was being sloppy. But it's pretty easy to like just scoot over, position yourself to keep shooting because he just keeps scooting over to match you and trying to hit you again. So once you just get used to that pattern, it's pretty reliable.
Yeah. So I mean, pretty cake as a first boss should be. It shouldn't be impossible. So, you're then as soon as the boss dies, there's like a little explosion animation. But then once that runs its course, you're spat out the side door of the building into a small area that was previously unreachable. And there's a sewer stairwell beckoning you back below ground. So that is kind of the system. The system you'll get into here. You do receive a clue piece that populates the panel on the status screen after you kill the boss. And this first one is the left tip of the black and white drawing of a flying space, or a flying saucer rather, that we all know will eventually fill this panel. And the Nintendo Power feature points out that beating this dude is a point of no return. You cannot go back to the area outside the front entrance of the building, so there's no way back into the joint. So if you miss anything prior to this, you're SOL. Specifically, the health unit.
Health.
Yeah, so that was the thing too. Like, just as a kid, just not getting it all, like not being able to backtrack, and like I know that thing's there, but whatever. It's just like
it is. At the same time, if you died and you continue, you're going back. So
that's true. That's true. That's true.
Then that's null and void.
Right. Yeah.
But then you gotta do it all over again. So.
Yeah. So down into sewer 3, there's nothing special cooking in this new sewer area, nor the overworld after it. Like you start on the road when you come back up, and you have to head east towards the boats and pier, which is, it's kind of, they do have like the water adds a new visual element to this deal, and the piers and boats and shit. And you pass through another short and boring sewer area to get to Morticia's house. She breaks you off with the whip, and you're now rolling with all the offensive heat this game has to offer. And I noticed a note in the Nintendo Power feature below the map of this area telling you to check out the fold-out poster map that came in the center of the issue. And the copywriter then proceeds to talk shit, basically. It says the town and sewer should be easy, but refer to the map if you need help. Which is like, shit, like should be easy, but if you suck at video games, you can use the map. Like, funny verbiage to throw in there. And you're just railroaded from there through one more, each of an overworld and a sewer area before we land on the doorstep of Zybar, I guess is the pronunciation, boss building. It's labeled number 8 on the map. And so let's talk about another boss battle, which is really all we have left to talk about. So Zybar is a big red dude. He's rocking some double horns. He's got a whip in each hand. So very like he's very like his mechanics are very much like McWimpy's, but I would say he's more relentless. He attacks at a faster clip, and he does have some vertical movement to him, which is a big, clearly game changer. So I quickly gleaned I could stay in front of him and just dodge away from the alternating whip hand attacks and pop him with a few turbo rounds before moving to the other side and repeating the cycle. So it was just like it was like a war of attrition type deal. It's like when you have that kind of battle in a video game, the difficulty is really in just like staying present, you know what I mean? And like making that minute but predictable move in repetition over and over and over again. It's so easy to just be like, and just like, fucking like either try to get too many shots in before knowing you have to move, like, either like, doing cowboy shit like that, or just literally the repetition of like a small pattern movement, and just staying in the cycle is really the difficulty of it. So that was my experience with them. Like, stay patient, stay vigilant. It took me, I think, two cracks to come out the victor. How was your Sidebar?
I definitely lost a couple times. We had such different experiences. I never noticed that pattern at all. Like, I felt like he would just come after me. I would just, like, there was no discernible pattern. No matter where I would move, he would just come after me, keep whipping me. So I kept dying at first. And then that's when I was like, okay, Nintendo Power, let's take a look. And it said to use that invisible potion. So that's what I would do. I had the fully powered whip, of course, because as soon as I got the whip, I was like, I need to use that. And so I'm like, I would hit the invisible and then just whip until my invisible ran out, and I would just hit it again, whip, and just keep doing it, and then I nuked him. So
that would be a strategy I would start using later. That these boss battles eventually became just, how much heat can I get in on this dude before my invincibility potions run out, and then start healing and kind of doing the same thing, and just really turn into a cheese fest. But
I didn't have to heal at this point, though. That's the big distinction. This was just invisible whips. It was done.
So when I do it, boss battles, the first thing I am trying to do when I get into a boss battle where I haven't already solved this puzzle is like trying to discern their reactions to my actions. Like that's really where the science of these boss battles comes in. And I am trying to, like, I've said a million times, like I think of them as real-time logic puzzles. Just like, that's why Tyson's Punch-Out is just the best for me, because that is just like apex level of that. You know what I mean? So like, I'm going in and like, step a little right, what's he do? If I step a little left, what's he do? And like, I very quickly learned that like his movements are mimicking those immediately, like 100% of the time. So like the way he alternates, it's like essentially just like I just need to move it. Like, as long as my steps are timed with the right whip arm, my step is going to be just like where I stop and he stops is just going to be a little bit offset. You know what I mean? With that hand's the track that it's on whipping wise, I'm going to be just a little bit to the left of it or a little bit to the right of it. So I like very quickly learned that, just like fucking fence testing when I first walked in. So
nice.
Not to mention just turbo the fuck out of them.
Always useful.
Yeah, right. So you get dumped back out there, and you get a meaningless little. You get another clue piece first of all, and I think it's the right side of the UFO, and the Overworld 5 area, or as I call it, Overworld 5. There's just a meaningless sewer run that takes you to yet another thing house, and he imparts the missiles this time. And then it's straight shot to a boss battle with Mr. Thunderblade in building marked 10 on the map, the Nintendo Power map. And he's got like a ram's head deal going on, and then he wields a big ass sword and shield that prevent any gun damage from getting through except when swinging his sword. So like, that's a big change, that he has like a defensive aspect to him, and he's described as possibly the toughest boss in the Nintendo Power feature. So that is true. He is hard as fuck, I would say. And it also says to use every weapon. So that's exactly what I did. Like I just got those missiles, so I assume that's what they were talking about. I was like mad missiles and TNT dumped onto his ass. Again, my second go round, I think. And I think like both got, like I think anyways, I'm not entirely sure, but I think both could get through even when his shield was up to do damage, you know, both the missiles and the TNT. So like that was, like I said, the whole thing with him is like that defensive aspect of him. So using something that like nullified that factor made it, you know, much more manageable the second time through. And yeah.
Interesting. This one was definitely easier than Zybar to me.
Really?
Like it was shocking. Like I worked them. I would hit the invisible.
And you're still using
the normal
control
one. Still using the normal, NES controller. I would hit an invisible, then a missile, and then like I'm whipping it while I'm invisible.
See right there, that if I have to go to the menu and switch back and forth, like I'm just not doing it. Like I would just turn the game off.
I had no choice. It was like invisible, and then like switch right back, missile. Then okay, now I'm whipping, and I'll hit another missile again. And as soon as my invisible goes out, then I'll go back to the screen, switch that invisible. That's how I had to do it. But he was done so quick. I only did that cycle like a couple times.
Oh, really?
And then he was done. Yeah. The whip.
It didn't work.
I felt like the whip was needed for him because I only had to do that like twice, maybe, and he was done.
Maybe that was the difference then, is the whip the damage was doing, or the whip the damage, the damage the whip was doing. Because I mean, I like I said, I burnt all the way through my missiles.
Really?
And then got to TNT and used a bunch of those, and that's how, like, literally. So it was a long. I mean, I posted that one on my boss battle video that I posted to that on the fucking page, like 5 minutes long or some shit. Like I fucking fought that dude forever. You know?
Wow, yeah, you definitely made it harder. Oh man, that's nuts, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm impressed. Like, you know, boss battles are usually not that complicated. You know, like usually like one person's experience is very similar to the others. Like every one of our boss battle experiences have been vastly different. So like that's kind of something like I want to credit it for, you know, like there's having that much variance in experience and gameplay. Yeah. It's not how these games always work, you know, so that's cool.
I mean, it was definitely satisfying. I will say that, like playing this so far and beating these bosses was very satisfying for me.
Beating the bosses for sure. Like, yeah, I mean, you know, I don't really have anything negative to say about the boss battles. My complaint all comes with the connective tissue between them. You know, it's just I was just completely checked out for every moment other than the boss battles. And maybe we've identified that was my own doing. I noticed after fragging him that this is where I noticed this, that all the item counts click back up. You know, like I missed that in the instruction manual, and then so we're flipped to the max. So like that's when it occurred to me. It's like, I mean, I told you I used all my missiles and all my, or maybe not all my TNT, but a lot of it. And like in my mind, not knowing that yet, I was like, I need to get back to those houses. Like, how do I refuel these? You know, I need to fucking, like, I'm going to need those later for sure. You know, so like, I was thinking I had to fucking get back to those houses somehow until I know, the first thing I did after I burned it all was go to the screen and check. And I was like, oh, they're all refueled. Thank God. You know, so.
Yeah. Game changer right there. Because going back sucks.
Yeah, well, impossible, you know, as we pointed out. So another clue after beating him, it's the cockpit of the UFO, and then it's outside the building too. You guessed it, stairwell leading to the sewer. After these messages.
We'll be right back.
This is One Tough Video Game. Fester's Quest is one tough video game with sinister mazes, deadly traps, hideous monsters, and spooky graphics. But if you make just one mistake, you start all over again. Fester's Quest, the video game from Sunsoft for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Are you good enough?
That was an original Sunsoft Fester's Quest commercial. And man, they are really selling it as a tough video game. Like they said that several times.
I was gonna say they say it so many fucking times. Like that end remark.
If you die one, if you
exactly. Yeah, like you go back to the beginning, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. And do you remember? Yeah. We talked about how there's like this almost incorrect or overblown belief about how difficult the game is, and like it didn't occur to me that like that could have came from the fucking marketing, like from the company like created that, which is like it's still a testament to how fucked up marketing is, especially with kids. But you know what I mean? They like planted that seed in so many kids' heads that like 30 years later they still fucking are just parroting and fucking just coming out of their fucking heads, like that's wild to think about. But yeah, the fact that it tells you that like if you die you go back to the beginning in the commercial is fucking brutal.
Yeah, but it makes sense if you think about it though, because like if you're not emulating with a ROM where you can't just like immediately go back to where you were, like you can't save state, and you're just doing what I was doing, like I was dying and having to start over, and I'm like, well, at least I kept all my stuff, that's great. Like through all this stuff all over again, you know what I mean? So it was tough in that. And if you didn't have the freaking NES advantage, then you were like, oh, now I gotta like freaking button mash when I get to certain enemies. Yeah. And once we got the whip, for me, man, it changed everything. Just soon, we'll get to it. We're almost there, but man, it was tough. There's a reason.
See, it's a cool commercial though. They leaned heavily on the cheap performer costs of a non-union hand model to play the role of thing, and my low budget indie filmmaking hustle producer Jeans gives that a tip of the cap for sure. So he's definitely the star of the show there. But
nice.
Yeah, pretty good commercial. We're starting with the sewer overworld area, following what was that? Thunderblade, Mr. Thunderbitch, with Mr. Thunderblade,
Mr. Thunderbird. Thunderbird?
Yeah, right. So I started dabbling with the whip in the sewer here a little bit, and this is where we kind of talk about I wrote down to talk about the actual levels of the whip, which we haven't done. So level 2 takes it from just a rather usual leather deal, to a chain link whip. Then level 3 adds an arrowhead to the tip of the chain. And then the 4th and highest level is a flaming inferno whip. And I don't know, I guess there's only so much you can do with a fucking whip, but like it was weird to me how much it paralleled Castlevania. Castlevania 2's whip progression, But I mean, like I said, how much variance how many things can you cook up for a whip types, right. The whip picks up items when you whack them with it. So here's the biggest problem with the whip, in my opinion. When you're spamming the whip, you will almost certainly pick up power down things. And when I noticed that, it was like dog shit, hard pass on that, back to the gun. Like I'm definitely not. There's no reason whatsoever or no upside whatsoever to using this in the general area of the game, like boss battles. Well, sure, but
there's 100% upside, and let me tell you why. Here's story time. This is what happened to me when I had to end up like doubling back. So once I got the whip, and obviously I'm powered up at this point and using the whip because I beat the last boss with it. Remember, for me, I have to button mash to kill these frog aliens and things, and it's freaking tough. And I also look.
Is the whip a sizable power difference?
Oh, 100%. Like I'm button mashing my butt off to like kill the frog aliens, the later ones. But with the whip, it's like 1 or 2, and they're done. Like even the green things that separate 1,000 times, like one whip, they're done. Like I could walk through. So. It's such a power upgrade. I'm using this in the overworld now. I'm like, heck yeah, whip power, because I can actually.
And it's worth mentioning that you're not spamming it then because you don't have turbo.
I'm not. I don't have. Yeah, I don't have to spam it. Like it's great. Like so for me, whips ahoy right now. Whips ahoy, man.
Okay.
And because if you whip 2 things at once too, they both drop at the same time, and you don't have to whip again, so you're good. So at this point in our story, I'm okay. For now.
Okay. All right. Well, you come out of that sewer with nowhere to go but a hole broken in a boat dock that somehow also leads into the sewer. All right. and that sewer brings you to boss building 11. And these building maps scale up in complexity, which is, it's such an empty and hollow thing. There's empty halls, so it's nothing more than busy work, So it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit of a. Like, it's a harder boss, so we got to make the building more elaborate, but it's like there's nothing happening here, man. It's kind of,
it's video games. You gotta do something.
What's the reason? Nintendo video games.
Make it summer.
But it's like senseless busy work tougher, not actual whatever. Anyways, looking ahead to the boss tips in the mag, it recommends the flaming whip. So I had my whole stance approaching this, but I was like, okay, I read this. So this is where I did my, it wasn't at the very end, I'm sorry. It's I did my hardcore and lengthy farming operation outside this building to get myself up to snuff on the whip front.
Okay.
And, no, check that. Yeah, because I was okay. So I was only able to get to level 3, even with like, they just were not coming fast at all. I remember doing, there was these frogs that were, I was walking in this L around the building and fucking killing these frogs back and forth. And there were only a handful of them. And I did it for so long. And it got to the point, and I hadn't noticed this anywhere else in the game because I had farmed so hard, but like doing that, I was noticing that like the drop rate of things at all, let alone the ones I wanted, was decreasing steadily to the point of nothing, at one point. So the game is hip to your fucking shit if you're trying to just farm hardcore like that. So that was interesting too. I did not expect that.
Yeah. I noticed that as well later when I had to.
Yeah. So Mutilator Troy is the boss battle, and that's a great fucking boss name. He's like, his sprite is, he's a hunched over birdish looking beast. Maybe like I would like we were talking about D&D earlier, but I would call this maybe a werebear, which I believe has some owl shit going on with it in D&D lore. Mm-hmm. And he's got a laser gun that sprays in 3 directions and a shield that makes hitting him fucking impossible. So this is the first one where I just legitimately spammed my potions, both of them, I mean, while dumping on his ass with missiles and running back and forth. And that fragged him on the first try. I just got lucky enough for it to work. You know what I mean? So
first try, nice.
Yeah.
Dude, I lost with him a couple of times.
Yeah.
And then I just opened a can on him, and I would just hit my invisible and then just drop missile after missile while dodging. Since he shot the 3 kind of thing, I could like just dodge and kind of be right in between one of them and just keep missiling and hitting invisible like until I ran out, and then I would just try to dodge. And he was done, thankfully, after beating me like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if I had to fight a boss a second time.
Really?
Yeah, we'll see what we'll get for starting with this guy.
Well, I guess that makes sense. I could see that.
Get another clue here. It appears that there's only 1 spot left in the drawing. It's like one of so it's 5 total. So you get the left, the first one, right to start, top third, and then there's 2 parts to the bottom middle one. So you get one of those. I think the left one here, and then you are onward to the sewer, and that leads to Mama's house in the northwest corner, where you get the nooses into your inventory, which have like I mentioned, a smart bomb effect. They kill everything in sight, and it's accompanied though by a cutaway card, which is clearly the only item that does this, to Lurch saying his catchphrase.
You're right.
That's scored with a little tune unique to this event. So they give you a unique little music ditty, and and maybe this is just my own personal preferences, but this Lurch is probably, for whatever reason, and again, like I am experiencing the Addams Family IP from an extreme distance. So the fact that I have any preference about anyone is, I don't know, it surprises me to some degree. But Lurch was a cool character to me. I liked the stoicness of Lurch. And so he was played in the original TV series by Ted Cassidy. And Ted Cassidy is a 6'9" actor, 6'9" actor from Pittsburgh that had a pretty fucking rockin' acting career for a character actor of this type, like a very specific physical thing, And he died in 1979 from complications associated with open heart surgery. That's a bummer. But getting back to this boss thing, I almost skimmed over the 4th health box tip at the bottom of page 44 in the Nintendo Power feature. I assume you got this one, of course. It's like you have to walk through the hidden path in the bushes surrounding the Addams Family mansion, supposedly is what it is. It's like the house. The graphic sprite art of the house is a little different than the others. And this is supposedly the Addams Family house, and it's just east of Mama's house. So when I saw there was nothing in there or way to get to it, I was just like, whatever. And I was just like literally gonna keep blowing by it. And you have to like walk through the bushes. And I 1,000%, as I was doing it, I 1,000% was certain that I had never seen this little sequence of events in my life, going through the bushes like that. So
I definitely have.
So I know I never came anywhere near this part of the game as a kid, for sure.
Yeah. Me neither. And so for me, this is where things took a turn. So because I made it all the way to the next boss, and then I was like, wait a minute, I should have a 4th. Like I looked at the Nintendo Power, and I was like, wait, I missed the 4th thing, it was back somewhere else. So going back again, I'm using the whip because it's OP to defeat all these like harder aliens. It just kills them. I accidentally, like, because they're relentless here for a second, I accidentally pick up something and depowers my whip and makes it harder to kill them. And I'm like, damn it. And it also depowers my gun. So my gun is too big now. And I'm just like, ah. So I end up like just healing. I'm frustrated. I end up like healing and killing them, going back and getting this freaking health. But at this point, I was screwed.
As well. Yeah, I had to
but at this point, I was screwed because like my weapons were lower. And so like I tried.
And you couldn't kill the enemies
to get it back up. And so I died and had to start over.
That never even occurred to me as a challenge factor, like that you could power down to a point where you literally couldn't power back up.
Dude, I was trying to farm and it just wasn't working here. So I died. I obviously had to continue, started back over, and I figured like, okay, at least I can farm that same part again. And so I was trying that, and it didn't.
Super admirable
let me get all the way up.
Well, very admirable of you to not have safe stated there. Well, I would have loaded 1,000% there.
I was saving after bosses, and generally, like, I was just going along, not thinking like, why would I need to save right here? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I messed around.
I've played too many of these fucked up games, Jay. I've played too many of them. I don't trust. I have no trust. Well, we discussed this. You just have more general trust in the world around you than I do. And
well, I thought I was just like, I thought I was the shit, I guess, but clearly I was screwed. But that's when I saw you.
I think your family just loves you more, Jay. I think that's what it is. You feel more nurtured.
Maybe so. I don't know. Yeah. But that's when I also saw you were pretty much in the same spot, but your freaking bullets were going so much faster than mine. And I was like, that's amazing. So that's when I said, okay, let me just take one more stab at the NES Advantage. And so I plugged it in. I realized it had the two different plugs. I was like, let me try the other one. Let me try this one. Let me get the Q-tips out. Let me clean it again. Let me do everything.
I didn't even fucking think. That could have easily been it. You just literally had the wrong one plugged in. That didn't even cross my mind as a factory. Hey, it's the one with the white strip on it as player one.
I don't think mine has a white strip on it, but now I need to go like double check because I'm not sure.
Yeah, the two where it branches off into two. One has a white line on the cord, one does not, and the white line is player one. That could easily have been it, or even not even that, even because it has the switch on it, so you could have had the player one plugged in but been on two, or vice versa. Like that could have easily been where the difficulty, and like if you don't know what that line means, who knows?
I mean, I don't have a manual, so I
right, exactly right.
But yeah, funny. Man, I plugged that in. I kept switching that up. I was like cleaning around the stick, the buttons. I did everything. I was like, I just kept trying combinations, and like something happened once, and I was like, wait, like it's recognizing it now. So I also, just for the heck of it, switched back to my Mac because I know how to use that one easier, even though I play on this one now, or emulate everything on my PC now. But yeah, I went back to my Mac because I'm like, all right, I know that emulation software much simpler. Like it's just easy. So let me just jump back in. And so once it worked, I was like, wait a minute, it's working. Money. So at this point, I played just with that on, and it was such a different experience. Like I went from there back to right at this point again so quickly and I just kept the gun. Like I just realized I just can't switch back to the whip right now. I just will leave this massive gun on, and I can just nuke everything. And I just did that, and it was such a different gaming experience, not having to dodge all these aliens and worry about that at all. Freaking, sure. I can't even believe it, man.
I feel like you have no choice but to give this game King Lorik's Blessing, completely separate from the game itself. Like, just because of the effect it had on your life, I think you owe it that.
I felt like I had to. I was like, I gotta get this. I gotta see if I can make this work. So I'm glad I figured out the right combination of switches and cords.
Well, when you get so you go into this house and you get something pretty unique. So you when you walk inside, you get a beautifully done family sprite portrait of the whole gang, and there's a moose head back behind them on the wall with its fucking antlers flapping back and forth, and you get the signature theme song. So again, anytime that happens in the game, you're like, cool. This song's great. This you can put me through anything while the song is playing. And yeah, I 1,000% have never seen that in my life either. So I know I just never came anywhere near this. So anyways, from there, you're just on that conveyor belt of misery into some lame sewer stents and even lamer overworld bush tunnels on your way to T-Rex, which is yet another great boss name. And T-Rex is a T-Rex body with a Cyclops snake head holding a pistol. So a pretty fucking wild fucking concoction of ideas as far as a boss artwork or design goes. And it shoots a 3-way bullet, and it does a thing with its head as well. And I stood completely still in front of it, just whacking it nonstop with my flame whip, using invisible potions over and over again, and it died before I ran out of those. Like I didn't even try to like battle this boss at all. Yeah. Finally, Nintendo Power describes it as, although he's the final boss from the UFO, he's not as tough as he looks. So I did. That's probably why I spammed him.
But wait a minute. Well, before we even fight him, let's talk about how you got to him. Did you use the Nintendo Power map to get to him and have like no problem? Like getting through the house to actually fight him?
The boss, you mean?
Yeah.
Or the building? Yeah.
Because I got lost. Super lost. Since I'd come in here once and like tried with my underpowered weapons, and it just was not working at all with my underpowered weapons. And I had to double back. Once I came back through here again, I was like, all right, let me just figure out my way through here. I got lost. I could not
with the
make
map
it through here. No, without the map, because I was thinking I could make it through. I could not make it through.
I used the map for sure. I mean, yeah.
Well, I wanted to try to have the challenge without it first, and I was like, I can't.
I just see those fucking buildings. You mentioned actually kind of not hating those. Like the buildings to me are just like, this is like, yes, valiant effort with the technology thing, but like sucks city on experience. There's just no reason to. It's just pointless wandering,
Got it.
No, see, I blew right through. I mean, I think I still, because it doesn't in those maps don't show you where the door is,
Right.
It just shows you.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. They have like a little X on them in the Nintendo Power map. Yeah, they do. They have like an X, so you know exactly where to go.
I didn't notice that. I definitely just wandered around.
I'm like
checking each fucking dead end, basically,
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's not actually I think this one, it's not in the place where, because it's usually like just furthest from the door, from the door you came in, whichever hallway is for like the top left corner if you came in the bottom right or whatever. This one's like, it was not in that exact place, but yeah.
I see what you're saying. Interesting.
Anyways. So wait, so the boss, how did the boss battle go?
I mean, surprisingly, not hard because I was turbo gunning him down.
Yeah.
I used some.
So you did not use
potions.
The whip. You did not use the whip.
I started with the whip and I was like, but it felt weird to be like turbo whipping. I don't know, it just felt weird. And because you were using the gun, I was like, well, if he's using the gun, maybe I don't need to. So I went gun, and I was still trying to do my original strategy. Let me hit invisible first. Let me hit some missiles. And he was nuked. Like, it was no problem. At that point, I was like, "Yay, turbo for life!"
yeah, definitely different. So you're dumped out of this, and you get the full clue panel now, depicting a flying saucer, and it's off to see the wizard. The clue panel and I didn't expect or know this would happen, but the clue panel. So it's got the full picture now, but it has a little pink flashing dot on it just below the top command center thing, and like off to the right a little bit, which suggests some kind of clue that might be a benefit. Like my expectation was absolutely it would just be a picture of UFO, which I knew, and you'd have to go to I knew you have to go to, and the UFO is fucking over the city, so like that the UFO is where this game is going to end. So I just assumed that it was like a completely pointless thing. This clue panel is just like bullshit,
Right.
So yeah, it's I was surprised that there was like additional information there provided, and I don't maybe maybe we'll just save it. We'll talk about that later, I guess. But
I paid no attention to that clue panel at all.
Okay, well then you won't. Yeah. I finished the game and I have no idea what that flashing dot means. It doesn't correspond with where the boss is in the UFO. I have no idea what that means. But
it didn't guide you. Like I thought you were gonna tell me you used it as a guide, like through the UFO map, because that map sucked. But I did not even look at this clue the entire time. Like it never dawned to me.
At least I don't think. I mean, maybe it does have some meaning that I either didn't engage or find or whatever, but it did not. We'll talk when we get to the UFO.
How did we not use the clue, the thing that's marked
the whole thing? What the fuck, man? I don't know.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but the thing is too, though, you got to be careful about having that opinion because we're using Nintendo Power, which is a cheat code. You know what I mean? Like if you were relying on just in-game hints or in-game information, maybe that thing means more. I don't know exactly how that would be implemented, but maybe, So I'm careful to criticize that aspect because it's ridiculous to suggest that it has no meaning. You know what I mean? It's got to have.
Maybe it's some type of positioning.
Right. Yeah, but I'm not sure what it would be after having been through that UFO. So yeah, I mean, you come out of this and like the home stretch, you're going to be subjected to a little more sewer action, and you come out on a little island with it's pretty cool actually, because it is, again, we've talked about how kind of just uniform all the overworld stuff has been to date, but you come out on this little island that's in the very center of the map, and I didn't even like. There's that map that was like the pullout map in the issue that's not in the scan that I was using of the Nintendo Power. So I was just using the parts map that in the pages, right? So when I saw that referenced, I went and looked it up and tried to find it, and so I could actually use the full sprite map. And like the full sprite map is much more, I wish I'd been using it for the whole time because it is much more immersive and like it makes more sense. It shows the whole landscape, So this island is in the dead center of the whole map, and it's like a little graveyard monolith tomb vibe going on with it. So it's surprisingly too, it's adorned with a bunch of Christianity iconography, which is usually like not
it's graveyards and stuff. They're like, yeah, this is what it is.
But they're actual crosses though, which usually you don't get those in Nintendo games, dude. And not US Nintendo games.
They must have been like, it's Fester's Quest. Like this is cemetery
either that or the fucking they sent it over to Nintendo and Nintendo couldn't get to this part of the game. And fucking
they're like, yeah, we're good. Just
whatever, man. Fucking Sunsoft, you guys are cool. Whatever, just fucking do whatever you want. So you walk up the steps on like the little tomb thing, and when you touch it, you're just teleported inside of the UFO. So now we're in the UFO, and this is where the rest of the shit goes down. And on one hand, they change shit up in here. Like it's visually different, and the enemies are different. But on the other hand, it's also just the same tedious walkabout the overworld and sewers are, but reskinned with different artwork. You know what I mean? And like even the enemies are all kind of like each enemy I encountered in here, and I shouldn't say each. Most of the enemies I encountered in here, I could directly and immediately draw a parallel in my mind to the enemy that I'd already encountered, that this was just a different sprite behaving like. You know what I mean? Like the burrowers, the slime replicating, like everything had like a similar
interesting thing. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, not all of them. Like those flying ones with the arms and shit that shoot the things were different. And so there's a little bit of originality in here, but there was also just some reskinning of the same behavioral code, I think. You know what I mean?
And they had the weird things that were like the eye-opening things that the shot. Those are annoying.
Yeah. And you could freeze those by just basically, if you dump on them with turbo, they freeze up. And that was the only way to deal with those. Yeah, like when I first encountered those and I was just trying to avoid them, they ruin your life. But if you just run up on them and just start dumping on them immediately, they'll just stand there until they die and not shoot anything.
Eventually they'll open up. Yeah.
Did you feel that way about it? Did you feel like this was a really tedious walkabout through here? Like this was.
I felt like this was hard as.
Yeah.
It was so hard. Like I went all the wrong ways. Like, I thoroughly and fully explored this entire UFO, I'm sure, because I went like all the wrong ways. first, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what? And then I checked, and then Super Power was like, darn it, there's no map for this part. Like which is good. I'm glad there
not
wasn't.
in there, but
Oh, man.
I just unforgivingly Googled the map of it.
Did you really?
No, I think I went. No, check that. I think I did go through it first. I got into a dead end. So yeah, I'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, I got to a part. So I was going through it just because it is, the first half of it or so is pretty linear. You can't. I mean, it is windy
at first.
But as far as what you don't have options, So I went through it's a long ass fucking area, level, whatever. And I got to that part where you come down into like the middle bottom after you went through that whole bottom right quadrant. And like you came down and there's like I hit a dead end that was like just off. I mean, dude, it was like 2 seconds down this way and I hit a dead end and I was like, nope, fuck this map. I was like, I'm not wandering aimlessly, dude. Fuck you. Go fuck yourself. Not happening, So yeah, like this my level of like inclination to deal with any adversity in here. I was like, nope, fuck you.
It's crazy to me because when you think about the overworld map, like it was so linear, you couldn't really go the wrong direction. Like there was that first part at the beginning where you could go here and it would lead nowhere. You could go in that one sewer and go nowhere. But otherwise, you were going pretty much. Sure. It funneled you where you wanted to go. So I assumed it was going to be like this here. And so the first opportunity where you could go right or left, I started to go left. I was like, wait, but let me just check right first. I'm sure it'll be a dead end. And it kept going long. So I was like, clearly this is the right way. And I kept going so long up and around, dead end. And I was like, yeah, well, dag. And then I went back again and went the next direction. And then once you had a decision again, I chose the wrong way, went super long, far, 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 and then dead. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like this. Yeah, this place was tough, man. It was tough for sure. Cause like, I have the advantage on now, so it's much, much better. But every now and then I like die, like get hit for some stupid reason. But thankfully I'm not dying.
Yeah, you couldn't, we already mentioned those eye things, and like it took me a few.
Yeah, they
usually they would send those things with the arms that shot at you when you're on like a some sort of like the bridges or platforms over the water or whatever. Basically, where you didn't have a lot of leeway movement wise, so you're kind of stuck in the way you had to deal with them. And like it took me, I had a little bit of trouble with them at first, figuring out that again, same thing. If you can just get on them and dump on them, your bullets would blow up their projectiles and essentially nerf them, So everything eventually became like a way that you could reliably deal with it. But yeah, there were, I guess, contrary to what I was saying about, having learned all the patterns of everything, like there were a couple enemies that you had to like figure out, so, but yeah, definitely not easy, man. I mean, I guess talking about the aesthetic a little more, the room you start in kind of reminded me of a like a bad tile floor in a kitchen at a grandmother's house.
Yeah, 70s.
Yeah,
hot in the 70s.
Yeah, the green and orange decor life,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you think when you say 70s to a millennial, Jay, like do they even think of the 70s? Like, or does their mind just skip right to the next thought without even forming a mental image? Like, do the 70s mean anything to the generation after us? Yeah, I mean, they barely mean, like, they mean to me like just like a few trace like TV things, you know what I mean? Like even to me. So like I bet kids younger than us, like the 70s, are like talking about, like if you talk to me about the 40s, I'm like, I know World War II. I know World War II happened then, but I have no mental image. Like,
not a clue.
Yeah,
I'm thinking like the 70s show, that same.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, they probably won't have any idea. I mean, really, my kids will have no freaking idea what I'm talking about.
Yep, for sure. So the design is set up in a way where you canvas the entire surface area of the shape of a UFO from a side view, right? Like, and I probably only know this because I was using that map. If you don't have a map, this probably never even occurs to you. But you're playing the game in a top-down view. But I don't even know if I can describe this. Like you're playing in a top-down view, but it's you know, if like you were thinking about this all in like a space, you're looking at it from above, and the UFO would have to be theoretically laying on its side for the shape that you go through, like the map is tracked on, you know, which it clearly that doesn't make any sense. It's just weird, you know. Whatever. It's just fucking whatever, Nintendo. But it's just something I could not shake while I was playing it because like, yeah, you can go up into what would be the bubble, but it's like again, it would have to be laying on its side, you know. And it's like it's long ways here. It's just weird. It's super fucking weird to me. But yeah, I got over. Yeah, it was over halfway through where I found that dead end. You know, so like literally, I had done half the stage, and just you know that should have. I guess what I'm getting at here is it should have instilled a little bit of, I don't know, investment into where I've gotten to, and that this was achievable in some way, shape, or form. Because I had gotten probably, you know, I didn't know it was halfway at the time. Well, no, I did kind of because I had the map, you know, so I kind of had an idea that I about halfway through. But or no, I wasn't on the map yet. Sorry, that's the difference. So yeah, so like I've been playing a while though, so like there should have been some level of investment, you know, but there like it wasn't. Like I said, the second I hit like any adversity, I was just like, nope. Fucking cheating. that's how at the end of my rope I was here. That was funny.
Oh man, I felt like it was cheat enough, like to use the advantage, except for the fact that they said to use it in the manual. So I was like, clearly it's not. They
right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Played with this.
Yeah, and like I mean, the commercial, like, there was like a full understanding at like the most.
This is a hard game. Like that commercial reframes my whole thinking. Of this.
yeah.
I like it. I appreciate it though now.
Yeah. So. Yeah, the second run through after I got restarted and got the map, I got probably 2/3 through without even needing to refer to it. No, so again, just like a testament to like I quit way too early basically on this part. But yeah, I only had to do that one area, which is probably where you're talking about. The like after you go through that gray room in the bottom middle, you go up that hallway and then come back down a little bit, and there's like a split off. And like even with the map, I still went the wrong way for a minute, you know, because I wasn't trying. Like I wasn't like looking at the map, like playing like frame for frame. I was like trying to like just refer to it when necessary, you know. So like I ended up going the wrong way even after having the map for a brief moment. But
and I feel like I encountered some random new aliens that I never encountered before, never saw again. Like I don't know. Did you recall that? Like I didn't stop and like take a picture or anything because I was just so like, oh my gosh, what is that? And it was something I would never see again. You know, some brand new alien, not the green ones that like shoot the balls. But I don't know. Do you recall anything else?
I honestly, dude, you know, we're sitting here talking about this fucking level. Like, I remember the ones I described, the flying ones with the eye, with the arms moving around it. I remember the eye crawly spider things. I have no memory of any other enemy in here. Like, gotcha. Not specifically, you know, like I'm just a bunch of shit that I had to vape. You know, like yeah. Very nice. None of them stood out to me art-wise, you know. So one thing that did stand out to me art-wise, though, commendably so, was when you approaching the final boss battle area, the entranceway to it has like a little bit of cool sprite work going on with it. There's skulls on the wall, and they built like a little stone wall outside of it that kind of like, I don't know, just gives it more significance. You know, like I felt the significance of that I was probably approaching the final boss, and kind of like I maybe harking back what I'm thinking of as I say this is like the Castlevania Dracula lead up, where you come out of the clock tower and you have to go up those steps where nothing's happening and it's got the moon behind it. You know, like when a game makes an effort, it takes some time, both gameplay wise and obviously development wise, to give you some build up, some anticipation to that final boss battle. Like that's cool to me, you know. So all the shit I'm talking in particular about this game, I want to point that out, that I thought that was cool and a little bit more suspenseful, you know.
So sure. I walked in there and I was like, is it
yeah, that's exactly
like I'm about to walk in the stuff right now, you know.
Right, yeah, like even that, so even like that shit outside of it's one thing, but like the floor of that room, I spent a moment outside of it like unsure if I should walk on that, you know what I mean? Like
sure.
It had like this could fuck you up look to it, and it reminded me a little bit of the if you can remember Life Force enough, or even Contra kind of has this, both kind of the same game, like that like just the alien.
I call it alien organs. Like
like the
like
body mass, veins and shit. It kind of had that look to it, you know. So yeah, I wasn't sure exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like I think of it if like, you know, if an alien life form had a lair, and like kind of like the H.R. Geiger alien stuff, so like they kind of like transform the innermost layers into like this organic space, organic
like Stranger
cover.
Things kind of too.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah. Yep. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, you walk into the room and you walk on it for a second, I guess, before you get in there. And like before you can see the back wall, though, it just cuts to a black boss arena, you know, like you've seen many times. And at the top is a mother brain type cyber bio life form creature kind of deal, you know? And this is your final boss battle. And the heap of this shit is like, it has two little guns right in the middle at floor level, like at the bottom of it, that just shoot a straightforward projectile. And then there's a hole just a little bit offset to the left of center mass, I would say, that shoots this wavy projectile out of it it's a lesser rate than the guns, you know? So again, having, I guess, gleaned what I had about boss battles to date, and particularly the way that my last few had went, I instinctively just stood in front of the front two guns and just blasted away with turbo gunfire using invincibility potions to prevent death until those were blown up. And then once they were goners, I was like, I don't really know exactly what I'm like. There, you know, there's no hint or behavior, or like there's no flashing eye, or you know what I mean. There's no thing on the sprite that draws your attention to it, to like this is its weak point, you know.
Yeah,
which is interesting boss design. And you know, maybe like I don't want to criticize it for that because it's the final boss, and like that it should be more difficult and less obvious, I guess. But I didn't know what to do basically, so I just switched to missiles and tried ever so briefly with missiles. But I don't know if you tried. Did you try missiles on it at all?
I did try missiles, yeah, and it would
it would
follow
track
the beam.
Yeah, exactly right.
Oh, so frustrating.
Yeah, those cool crosshair, or that cool like fucking targeting system that I commended earlier. Like, would follow the fucking projectile. So like, dude, I don't even know if I got one off. Like the second I saw the crosshair follow that thing, I was like, nope. I don't want nothing to do with that. You know, and like turn the missiles back off. So it was funny. Like I think I laughed out loud at like how short my amount of time spent with that strategy was. It was just so quickly, like not the way to go. Yeah. So I mean that didn't work, and I was like, well, fuck it, kamikaze. So I just like went back to, I just dumped on like the middle of the mass, you know, and like using healing potions when needed, and it died before any risk of death presented itself. You know what I mean? Like first time.
Really?
Yeah. Other than that missile thing, like
first
time. Other than that, that play video was the first time I'm walking in there. That was all no bullshit. The first time. So you know, save for that moment with the missiles, no stress. It was a stress-free experience, and you know, in turn, not much satisfaction, if any, from the demise.
Wow.
Which is, based on my experience to date, is exactly what I expected to be. I will say, you know, so I wasn't surprised, but you're still a little disappointed, and and I mean that, you know, I did it in stream, so my boss battle stream vid will be in the show notes if you want to see how bored I am the whole time. But like, there was just no suspense to it at all. Once I got in the room, like I said, it was cool and suspenseful getting in there, but like the actual battle was, I don't know, didn't do anything for me. How was yours?
Wow. The boss was definitely hard. I definitely died a couple times. I tried to use the same strategy, but I came in expecting to use the whip, you know, because of the whip's everything about it. I'm like, well, they told me to have some things can only be defeated with the powered up whip. So I came in with the powered up whip. And
I think those little notes, like in the bottom, like that little like cluster of like, we're not going to show you the map, but here's a couple of things, couple things to help you with the final boss. Like I think it mentioned in there something about having the powered up whip.
So I tried that, but like I kept shooting my missiles, and the heat seeking would follow the heat of the freaking bullets. And I died a couple times because I would try the invincibility, and eventually, I don't know, man. I switched back to the gun, but like I didn't want to go back to the gun at first, because I just assumed I had to use the whip, and of course I didn't. I therefore did not have a shield to keep me alive quick enough, and so I would die. But I switched back to the gun, and I was so frustrated. I just flipped to the game genie code, invincibility.
Oh
let's
yeah.
go.
No
Yep.
shit. That was that.
Yeah, man. It was tough. It was tough, man.
Did you try just walking up to and just dumping on those guns?
Not just standing straight up. Like I knew I had to kill them, but like I still, every time I would get hit, I'm like, I've got to be able to position myself or do something else. And like maybe if I had just like stood still and not moved at all, that might have happened. But yeah, didn't.
Well, you can watch the video. It definitely just wastes them. I mean, I had to burn some potions doing it. Like I'd say no suspense. Like I got through all my invincible potions and, had to start taking damage, but like, and that obviously is different than invincibility. And that you got to like watch your health meter and like make sure it's not, once you get, if you let it get to 1, you're risking a little bit, but the thing is, once you kill those guns, like I mentioned, that the wavy projectile that comes out the hole is it's not seldom, but it's much more incremental and predictable than the gunfire is, so like you don't, you're not as worried about getting down to 1 health once that's the only thing left. You know what I mean?
See, that's interesting. I spent time trying to figure out the bosses. I'm like, this is the final boss. I need to figure out its mechanics. So like once I got to the point where I destroyed one of the guns, I'm like, what is this wavy thing doing? Like I'd move and it would change its behavior, because at first I'm like, oh, if it comes straight down, it's going to hit me like this. But if I move over here, I'll miss it. But it would go like much wider and still hit me.
Oh, well, see, I never even saw that variant. I never even saw that variant in its flight pattern because I never moved out from right in front of the fucking thing.
That's good. Yeah, I spent apparently a lot of time trying to figure it out. And
the fucking thing blows up, and it cuts to the view we saw beyond Fester in the opening cinematic, and the UFO is above the city, and before the it actually explodes into nothingness. After like it's still beaming shit up, and then it just explodes, and then all is well. It just like cuts from that. It cuts from that to the whole family and a crowd of cheering people. Essentially, I guess theoretically, like downtown, after this has happened, and you got the dope ass family, fucking Addams Family song playing, and it's pretty long. Like it stays on that screen. Everyone's fucking raising their fists and shit, for a pretty long time. So like, it was oddly, even though somewhat basic, pretty satisfying, and then like, so that it finishes that, and then it cuts to a teal card with just white text saying copyright 1989 by Sunsoft, and then it's just silence forever. It doesn't cut to the title screen, and there's no expectation to play it again or anything like that. So I thought that interesting and odd that it didn't.
Well, if it's supposed to be one tough video game, they're like, if you beat it, here's your celebration song. Congratulations. You're not gonna probably want to play this again. You're done.
Sure, but not even like fake credits, just like no credits at all, like nothing about nothing.
I did sit there. I did sit waiting for a while. Like,
oh yeah, every time I beat one of these games, I just sit and go,
was it?
Yeah, what's coming
no
next?
Cuts?
yeah. What's it gonna do? Yeah. So.
It was surprising not to see that. You're right. That was the overworld theme, bringing us into the blessing, our favorite section. Josh, what are you thinking?
I don't know if this has ever happened to me before, man. I have this long list. Not long, but I have a list here of notes saying things like it kind of feels like you're just on a conveyor belt from boss battle to boss battle. The overworld and sewer areas are pointless, tedium. Like where the only mental engaging thing is just like avoiding the weapon power downs after I've turbo eviscerated an enemy. Like the biggest difficulty is aligning Fester's sprite in a way where his gunfire isn't impeded by bushes, walls, benches, whatever. Like it's next to nothing to do with the enemy presenting difficulty themselves. that the only way to make this game interesting would be to play Sans Turbo, which I don't know if that would make it like it. I was thinking it wouldn't make it harder necessarily. It would just be more exhausting. You know what I mean? And sitting here and talking about it for 3 hours with you, I think I'm wrong. I think the way I played it is wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I think I did it wrong. There were so many, the boss battles were all interesting and engaging for the most part. Again, like, the only reason I was able to do the things I did where I didn't have to solve a puzzle were because I was playing it with the turbo thing, and like, yes, it tells you to do that in the manual, but like, I don't know, man. That's the thing. Like, my only thinking about it more gripe is that, and I don't know, I don't have a solution for it, is like, what is that middle ground that I'm saying it needs in order to, like, I don't know where that is. I don't know if it exists between playing it on turbo and just eviscerating things, or playing it without turbo and it being fucking impossible, and like, I mean, you got to, it was like almost the fourth boss, right, before you switched over.
I got to the fifth. I was to the point where I was going towards the fifth boss.
Okay, so beating the fourth one then.
Yeah.
Without turbo. So yeah, I mean, and T-Rex is not that hard, and nor is the Mother Brain. I mean, harder clearly without turbo, but I mean, you didn't even do the cheese thing that I did to beat either one of those, I don't think. So yeah, I think I just did wrong, and I think I owe it. I think as much as there is, like, it is frustrating. Like, that was the goal. Like, that was like you said, the commercial. Like, that's what it was supposed to be. They knew it was that. And like, you could say that it's lazy to know that it's apocalyptically difficult at times, and just do it anyways, and to not try to balance that out or take the time or make the effort or whatever. But I don't know, man. Like, I think I walked into this. You heard the top of the episode. Like, this was no before this conversation, and I think, if only not spite, but like, if only just like in response to my own failure to try to engage it the way it needs to, and probably is supposed to be engaged. I owe it that, because there was enough in there, even despite all my bitching, that I had good to say about it, that I think I have to flip my script and say yes. Which I could not have anticipated less going into this recording.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, man. I think I'm surprised to hear that, but I think you're right. I think there's some nuances that you just miss, like, because of my experiences with the gun and realizing how much easier it was to use a whip, to not have to do so much button jamming. I countered these issues where, like, the big jumping, like, flea aliens, they don't fear the whip. Like, it doesn't push them back, so they would still hit me. And so I was like, oh, so like, I had no choice but to switch back to the gun. But if my gun was like lower powered, because that's when I was like, it just, you know what I mean? Like, so you experience these like things where it's like, oh, this is so tough right here, and you're just like, you're just like nuking through it.
The economies of the game are completely flatlined by the turbo thing, for sure. Yeah, and that's that nuance is exactly what I was saying was lacking. So I can't. It would be so hypocritical to make that the reason to not tell someone to play it, knowing that that's why it was that way, So yeah.
Wow.
Weird.
All right.
That is a yes then? How do you as well?
Well, I think yes. Long story short, yes. It is a tough game. I had to grind. Like, I felt like, knowing my knowledge of video games now and realizing, oh wow, I get to power up guns. Like, yeah, I want to grind and get like all the gun if I can do that here, because it won't fit my other guns won't fit in the sewers and, blah, blah, blah. Having that different experience to where I get a completely different weapon and how it changes things. And then I was actually having fun, probably from the second boss through the fourth when I was just tearing through things because I was feeling so OP and I was like, yeah, this is great. I'm succeeding going through. And the minute like hardships came and I was like, daggone it, I'm depowered a bit. Then the whole thing changed and it was like much tougher for me to double back and get the health, to maintain. Like it was just, everything was a struggle to where I was like, all right, I'm starting over. Like I continued, I got to start over and like get those weapons up to snuff and keep them. Because if I drop again, like it's so much harder to like keep these guys down. And I still had to like whip like the jumping pink frogs like a couple times. So if there's multiple, it's tough. So yeah, I had to really think about how I wanted to approach things, which gun I wanted to use, if I was going to be using missiles, like all the boss battles were engaging. So it was freaking tough. Obviously, the music is great. The score is good.
Yeah, the music is
There's
fantastic.
nostalgia.
Graphics are fantastic. The cutscenes are fucking phenomenal. Yeah, I mean.
So that's a yes. Knowing, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, listen to this. So I didn't say that because I changed my tune. Like the closing little thing that I wrote down here was, just as every Lorik disciple remarked in the Facebook page post throughout my play, the only reason to play this game is for self-punishment or novelty. It is not an enjoyable experience in any real way outside of that awesome theme song. Like that's what I wrote down, and I got to a place where I said yes instead in this conversation. That's kind of crazy. If only the U.S. political landscape could be such good listeners.
Right. Like, are you saying your thinking has evolved on this?
Are you saying that you listened to the people around you and changed your mind about the way you felt hardcore about something inside of you? If only.
Nice.
Maybe an initiative that we could start, Jay, is to maybe like the way they airdrop supplies onto third world countries, just airdrop copies of Fester's Quest onto the U.S. coast to coast, and it could just make everything better.
We got to include our commentary. Like, remember, in case you experienced it this way, think about it this way. Like,
exactly right. Yeah, see both sides of the coin. Man, is there a more, like, have we, we've given a lot of games, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out included, glowing double yeses. Is there a more glowing King Lorik endorsement than that? We said it could rectify the ultra divided U.S. fucking political landscape. That's like fucking, yeah.
Thank you, Adam's family.
Yeah, thank you, Sunsoft. We should get their fucking whoever is the lead. We don't know because it's not in the credits. Probably maybe the biggest gripe now after the fact. We only knew who the fuck that was, which maybe we could look it up. Let that person know that like your game holds the key to harmony, to world peace and fucking and political harmony in the United States. Okay, well, that's fucking Fester's Quest. Didn't see that coming. Next up is Game Pro number 9. And you can subscribe to the pod on the platform provided, whatever dumbass company this is of your pottery. Please rate and leave positive shit for the pod on that podcast platform of choice or any other for that matter. The website is nyehentertainment.com/ISOHpod. You can email us at isohpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the pod on Facebook and banter with us on there. And there are links to the YouTube gameplay videos playlists or in the show notes, rather. There's the ISOH subreddit if you want to get down on Reddit and hate Mark Zuckerberg. We don't have a Patreon, but if you'd like giving money to the things podcasters tell you to and would like to do so in our direction, the Able Gamers Foundation creates custom gaming rigs for gamers with disabilities, and that is cool as fuck. The URL for that, rather, is ablegamers.org. And Jay, what are your socials?
Gentleman JB without the second E. That's my gamer tag, and yeah, that's how you can find me on Xbox.
And you can find me on Twitter at Josh Folan, on Instagram at MyShiftKeyIsBroke. And yeah, we have an Instagram as well, ISOHpod on Instagram. I should have mentioned that, and I'll fix these notes. And that's how you can find all of us and the pod. Okay, bye.
Bye.